Applebee's by inviting them to ridicule its food service and atmosphere. Here, take a look.
What do you guys want to do?
We could go to Applebee's. No, let's seriously go to Applebee's.
Okay.
Look, guys, it's grilled.
It's just like my neighborhood restaurant, only completely geographically not specific.
Yeah, nothing like a wild time at Applebee's, right?
Applebee's. Wouldn't it be funny to go to Applebee's?
I like
Isn't that
it.
persuasive?
Yeah.
But, they're not resting on their laurels. They're adding new menu items designed to be ridiculed outright, like the fajita cordon bleu and the chicken strip explosion.
Those sound ridiculous.
I know, but so far this has been so successful that Applebee's is actually prepping a second series of ads aimed at customers who enjoy making fun of annoying young people who do things ironically.
This is the Onion News Network.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
Well, what's up, all of our liberty-loving friends? This is another fantastic episode of Liberty at Night with Nate and Charlie on the Free Talk Live Network, coming at you from Nashville, Tennessee. And of course, Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash Digital Cash. With fees of less than a penny per transaction, Dash is made for spending. Dash is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies and is widely available on exchanges, including the decentralized Maya protocol and in multi-crypto wallets. Thanks to Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month for this sponsorship. It's easy to get and use Dash. You can learn more at dash.org. That's dash.org. And of course, I also have to tell you guys about inflation and how the government punishes you for keeping your wealth, your money, either in cash or in a savings account. And that is, of course, because of inflation, which is a tax on savers. It is the systematic erosion of your wealth. You know that items that cost $10 today could cost $15 tomorrow. Your groceries, they've gone up 100%. Some people want to tell you it's 20%. It's actually 100% if you're buying the same items. But your savings account or the cash in your safe at home still has the same amount of money in it. That means it's losing its purchasing power. Well, the founders of Noble Gold have more than 20 years of combined experience in buying gold and silver. They've secured more than $1 billion in precious metals for their clients. This is all exciting because gold can be a hedge against inflation. Gold remains steady when inflation is on the rise and the dollar is in turmoil. Gold can be a defense against economic downturn, and unlike money, gold can't be printed. It's your shield in times of economic uncertainty. Gold's value doesn't just hold, it increases during inflationary periods. To find out more, you can go to noblegoldinvestments.com/GML. That's noblegoldinvestments.com/GML. And this is, of course, Liberty at Night on Free Talk Live. But don't forget that Charlie and I have a daily show called Good Morning Liberty, where we give you the daily news from a libertarian mindset. You can find Good Morning Liberty on all of your favorite podcast apps, every single one of them. You can also go to BernieLies.com in your browser, or you can go to GodHatesFeds.com and grab one of our cool God Hates Feds t-shirts if you want to do that. We're in a new studio today. Charlie has migrated to yet another house. This is our fifth studio for Good Morning Liberty. I think that's
in
correct.
5 years? I mean, once a year isn't bad.
New studio a year.
Yeah.
That's fine. And so we just got all that movement done yesterday.
Well, it's not done.
Oh, it's not totally done. And so here we are, just kind of hanging out.
Just a couple of dudes.
Hanging out. We're further away from each other. Normally, we could shake hands or something on the show. And we're so, if I throw this, I don't even think I can get it to fly over to Charlie. It did make it to your table over there. Okay, we did make that. So anyhow, we're moving. And since we've been moving, and since we had a holiday weekend and all that stuff, and we didn't really have a lot of time to put together a show today. So thanks for hanging out, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.
Yeah.
No, we do have a couple things. So
Biden says he's not leaving.
he's not leaving. Okay. They're going to need a wrecking ball. That's what they're going to need. All right. He's not going to do it. He actually wrote.
Had he got on a little stage with a microphone and done a little speech, I
he'd
might
win.
vote for him.
He'd win.
Yeah.
I'd vote for him right then.
If he
for
would
sure.
have Wolf of Wall Streeted his presidency, there's a chance that I could have swung my vote.
So he has written a strongly worded letter to Hill Democrats. Some top people out there have been calling for him to drop out. Now imagine just how crazy a world we're living in right now. He's the actual president of the United States right now. Mm-hmm. And people in his party and people in the media are calling for him to. The election's in November. Okay, it's currently July. And they're saying that he needs to drop out of the election.
He has like another 8 months of presidency to go.
Meanwhile, by the way, I just saw reports on Twitter this morning. No one's seen Donald Trump in like 10 days. Have you noticed?
No.
There's anything. I believe it's 10 days since he did his last public appearance.
Oh, he's been truthing though.
But who actually truths? Anyone could put the caps lock on and say stupid stuff.
Yeah.
There's no proof that it was actually him truthing.
That's true.
But I don't know. I think his strategy right now might be
lay low.
Let Biden step on as many rakes as possible,
Yeah.
and just pop up and hit him in the face because everyone's talking about Biden right now.
Just lay low for a while.
And so if he comes out and he starts spewing his Project 2025 nonsense, well, then people are going to start talking about that, And so maybe that's
he
the strategy.
distanced himself from.
He did.
He did. He had never heard of it.
I don't have it pulled up, but he said that he has nothing to do with it. He hadn't heard of it. Some of the stuff in Project 2025 is crazy and all that, and essentially distancing himself, which he is actually distanced from this. Like the fact that I'm not trying to back up Trump here, but the fact that some people who used to be in Trump's administration have joined a think tank with the Heritage Foundation and are writing this roadmap for a conservative presidency doesn't mean really that Trump has anything to do with it or that he's going to implement any of the things that this think tank is saying. I'm trying to read the thing right now. It's almost 1,000 pages long. I've seen a lot of terrible stuff, and I only believe about 5% of it right now because I see a lot of people that like to get out there and lie on Twitter all the time. So I would suggest trying to actually find the real details in Project 2025 beforehand. You see why Trump's not out talking right now? Because we didn't talk about Biden for the last minute, when instead we're supposed to be talking about Biden, who says he is not, he's not going to do it. Okay, he wrote a letter, or someone wrote a letter. Who actually thinks he wrote the letter? No one. But he wrote a letter, fellow Democrats. Now that you have returned from the July 4th recess, I want you to know that despite all the speculation in the press and elsewhere, I am firmly committed to staying in this race, to running this race to the end, and to beating Donald Trump.
He gave himself a little bit of an out there.
Where's the
running
out?
this race to the end?
Yeah. When is
the end of his life?
That's trru. Could just be the end of his life. He didn't clarify really.
No.
I like how you're kind of lawyering that document right there.
It's kind of weird that it's at the end of this month or the beginning of August before the convention.
The end of this week. It doesn't really matter.
The guy could just fall over.
That's true. At any point in time. He says, I can respond to all this. I'm going to skip over the paragraph where he talks about how people are behind him still. He says, I can respond to all this by saying clearly and unequivocally, I would be again if I didn't have beat Donald Trump. Okay? Mm-hmm. So he says he wouldn't be running again if I did not absolutely believe I was the best person to beat Donald Trump in 2024. Now, he could actually be right about that. That's something to remember because Kamala would be the obvious next person up, and she's not as good of a person to beat Donald Trump, probably, as Joe Biden. I don't know, maybe Gavin Newsom. That's really the only other name that you've heard, or Michelle Obama. People keep wanting to say that Michelle Obama could run and beat him, but she's expressed no interest for this whatsoever. So I don't really think that's a thing. He says, we had a democratic nomination process and the voters have spoken clearly and decisively. the voters that were allowed to participate in the Democratic primary, because some states didn't even have primaries. And then, of course, they kept people off the ballots and other primaries and stuff like that. Didn't have any debates or anything. Super Democratic primary that they had. But the voters that they allowed to speak spoke clearly and decisively. He received over 14 million votes, 87% of the votes cast across the entire nomination process. He has nearly 3,900 delegates, making me the presumptive nominee of our party by a wide margin. He's really coming out and saying, hey, there's nothing you guys can do about this. I don't care if you don't like me. I've already got these delegates, I think. Also, what day is it and who am I? And those are the things that he's saying right now. This was a process open to anyone who wanted to run, if they could get on the ballot and if we would allow their state to actually have primaries, stuff like that. Only 3 people chose to challenge me. One fared so badly that he left the primaries to run as an independent.
RFK?
I wonder who he's talking. I don't know. There's no telling who he's talking about. Another attacked me for being too old and was soundly defeated. The voters of the Democratic Party have voted. They have chosen me to be the nominee.
What about the other one?
Of the party.
No, you said 3. You only talked about 2.
Well, I guess the other one was fine. I'm not sure. He says, do we now? I'm having the Patriot. Will you now stop at only words? No. Do we now just say this process didn't matter? That the voters don't have a say? I'm sorry, I don't really care about all this stuff right here because they had a very undemocratic Democratic primary in the first place. And now they're coming out and saying, the voters have chosen. Yeah. What are you talking about? Come on. Isn't it weird?
Don't undermine democracy now after we already did.
So Charlie, the question is, I'm gonna let's put some money on the line right now. We don't have to put money on the line, it's fine. But do you think he's going to be on the ballot? Is he going to be the guy?
No.
No?
I still don't think so.
Really? What do you think is going to happen?
He's either going to die or they're going to invoke the 25th or something. Something's going to happen to where he's not going to be cognitively. Neither am I.
No, that's not good.
I can't even say the word.
I'm not going to vote for you.
That he's.
Yeah.
Something's going to happen. He's not going to. It is.
It's no joke.
Come on. Serious.
Yeah, I got you. Something's going to happen. Yeah. Okay.
He's going to be ruled to not be mentally fit sometime in the next month or so.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if they're trying to bait the Republicans into pushing the 25th Amendment thing. Some Democrats will have to come along as well. But what if they bait the Republicans in the 25th Amendmenting Biden and showing that the Republicans are dictators who want to take out their political opponents before the election, and then they could use that as a talking point. Mm-hmm. Also, I've heard a lot of people talk about how they had this debate so early, very early debate, because they thought this might be a problem. And so they could still have time to try and get him off the ballot and get someone else in there. Maybe they didn't account for the fact that Biden sort of needs to agree to not keep running. And I don't think he's the kind of guy that's going to drop out. He's too arrogant. He's too full of himself.
Surely won't let him.
His wife, if she's wearing the pants in the family right now, if she's wearing the Depends in his family right now, then she's not going to let him drop out either, And Hunter wants him to stay in too. How's he going to keep his art business going if he's not the president anymore? It's a lot of writing on this. Prison art, big thing.
Yeah, it is.
You got to have that. He says he has no doubt that he will beat Donald Trump. We have historic record of success to run on, from creating over 15 million jobs, including 200,000 just last month. I don't know why he didn't just create 300,000 last month. If I were him, I would have just hit the more jobs button and created more jobs.
I saw that number was revised down to like 115.
They're each getting revised down by they're dropping by 75,000 jobs.
Yes.
Each month they revise it down. Reaching historic lows on unemployment. Historic just means that we've also hit those lows previously in our history as well. But we did get down to historic lows on unemployment. Revitalizing American manufacturing jobs with 800,000 jobs. I did the math on that one. I think it's actually 150,000 more since the pandemic that we've got in manufacturing jobs.
So 650,000 of them just were able to go back to work?
They just went back to, they opened the doors and people went back to work. That kind of thing.
We told them they couldn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And then we told him they could work, and now we're going to count that as a job created.
So he's still doing this thing, and some people buy into it, man.
How? This is
They do. They buy into it, you know? What are you going to do?
it's like I tell Nate that he can no longer come on the podcast after this show.
Yeah.
You're no longer allowed to come back in the studio.
Actually, you're going to send me to jail if I try.
Yeah. And then tomorrow when you come back, because I let you come back in, I created a podcast
A job. That's good for you. Good job. Okay, so
I'm out here creating jobs. What are you doing?
He says he's not dropping out, but remember also politicians do this thing and they say that they're not going to drop out until the day that they drop out. Nikki Haley, I don't know, like a day before she dropped out of the primary, said that she wasn't dropping out of the primary.
She was there to win.
That's just what they do. And one reason is they can keep raising money up until that time. You know, if you start signaling that you're going to drop out, well, no one's going to send your campaign money anymore. And so if that theory were to hold true, that would mean that they plan on Kamala being the person who's going to pick up the tyranny torch and carry it across the finish line as the first black woman president.
Does it also help them that she would be on the ballot in those states that you can't change the ballot on?
I don't know.
She would be on there as the VP, right?
The whole state ballot thing is weird to me because they haven't actually had the Democratic convention yet. And you would think that it wouldn't be too late to get on the ballot in those states when the Democratic convention hasn't happened.
It does seem
and they
strange.
haven't actually chosen a candidate yet. Not technically, you know? It's not like they get there and they choose Dean Phillips or whoever, and they're like, oh, well, it's too bad. We printed Biden's name on the ballots months ago, you know? It sucks the convention was at this time because all the states already printed their ballots.
Yeah.
Doesn't it kind of seem like technically it would need to be after the convention happens so you know who the nominee is?
I think
I don't
so,
know.
but I don't know.
I don't know how that works.
Maybe they typically know who the nominee is going to be by early May, April, May, whatever, because they don't. It's not that they actually decide at the convention. It's just a big party.
So you're saying that they didn't hold Bernie Sanders off at the convention. It's because they had already printed all the names on the ballots. That's all it was.
Clinton was the nominee from the get-go.
Yeah.
There was no... The same thing happens in the Republican Party.
The biggest reason they have... Well, there's two big reasons they have to go with Kamala. The financial reason is a really big one.
DEI.
We'll talk about that here in a second. Financial is a really big one because the money that's gone to their campaign can only be used by either Joe Biden or Kamala Harris as a candidate. So all the money that's gone in, if she decides to run for president, she can use the money that they have raised so far. Anyone else who comes in is going to have to raise like all new money. So they'll just have to go with her. And it's not because she's a black woman, contrary to what some people are saying. I saw this tweet going around of this article from the New York Post. Okay. And I agree.
It was racist.
I agree. Completely racist idea. Okay. New York Post said America may soon be subjected to the country's first DEI president, Kamala Harris. And boy, the retweets of this, the comments and stuff on this Twitter post really hit the nail on the head and called them out. I saw one that got thousands of retweets that says, just go ahead and say the N-word. Just go ahead and do it, you know? Just this ridiculous, insane idea that Kamala Harris is in her job because she's a black woman. I mean, there's no place for that in American political discourse at all, man.
Oh, she's a former prosecutor and senator, she obviously has the track record.
On popularity alone. I mean, heck, she got almost 2% in her home state, Yeah. And no percent anywhere else, ever, in that whole primary. Okay?
Yeah.
So on popularity alone, that must be what it is. You hear her speak, and you just know that when a person like Kamala is speaking as the vice president, Kamala Harris, the speech has been spoken in such a way that the vice president is speaking to the American people, whose vice president is Kamala Harris. And so you just know.
That's right.
You just know. You get that feeling in your gut when she's talking, you know? And so obviously we're being facetious right now. She was chosen.
She's from the streets.
Was that on what day was it? Wednesday we played, because we did Dumb Bleep of the Week. It feels like we took a lot of time off, and it's because we kind of just did, you know? But yeah, she knows. She's been out on the streets, you know? She knows this thing. Go ahead with a little bit of this article, Charlie.
From the New York Post. There's a raging debate in corporate America on the future of DEI, aka diversity, equity, and inclusion, because it is literally destroying businesses that go there. And yet the American public may soon be subjected to DEI writ large in the next president of the United States if Kamala Harris finds her way to the top of a Democratic ticket while Joe Biden wilts away as the party's presidential nominee and his entire life, actually.
Yeah.
After his horrific debate performance. Yes, maybe the most irrepressibly fatuous,
I guess,
politician in America.
I gotta tell you, whatever that word is, I've never seen it in print.
May become the leader of the free world because the Democratic Party is unable to break its DEI stranglehold.
And that's this is true. Okay, now to be fair, Tactical Warlock here in the group said,
did Trump write this?
Sounds like it. To be fair, he could have picked any black woman, but he chose this black woman. Okay, and so she apparently was better than all of the other black women. Now that decision was done on merit. Okay.
Probably her prosecution record.
Yeah, that's what it was. They have a lot in common. You know, he did the crime bill. She put a lot of people in prison.
She put it into action.
Yeah. Okay. So they work well together.
She used that crime bill that he authored and then prosecuted people
to do her job, for sure. What do you guys think about the prospect of Kamala Harris as president of the United States? What do you think? You tell me. You can send me an email if you want to, nate@goodmorningliberty.us, nate@goodmorningliberty.us, because this is America. None of that .com commie stuff, okay? It's .us. Or you could find us on Twitter if you want to. Just search Good Morning Liberty. You can go to Good AM Liberty. That's our actual handle on there. Instagram, Facebook, wherever it is, you know the thing. And of course, you can watch the videos of every single one of these episodes on YouTube, Rumble, or Odyssey. We really could use everyone's help really right now on Twitter. What we found with Twitter, or X, is that when you present ideas with a lot of nuance, very rarely are things super simple. Very rarely is it either A or B. A lot of times it's a combination of the two of those things. And what we've noticed is when you present the ideas as, well, it's not really either A or B, some aspects of both A and B are correct, and also you're forgetting C, D, E, and F at the same time. Well, that doesn't make for such a viral tweet, I guess. I mean, it works sometimes, of course, but we need you guys to go out there and hit retweet, comment, like, follow, do all of those things that some good liberty-loving folks would do. And if you do all of those things, we're going to be right back to finish up this next segment when we come back.
This hour of Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash Digital Cash. Dash is the cryptocurrency designed to be used for spending. Rising fees have made Bitcoin useless for purchases, but Dash continues to have fees less than 1 cent per transaction, and its features ensure Dash is undefeated as the most useful cryptocurrency in the marketplace. From a technical standpoint, Dash transactions are irreversible, and its network is protected from 51% attacks by their Chainlocks technology. There's no need to wait for a confirmation before considering a Dash transaction complete, so it's great for merchants. Dash is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies and is widely available on exchanges, including the decentralized Maya protocol, and in multi-crypto wallets. It's easy to get and use Dash. Start by learning more at dash.org. Big thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month to promote Dash on the air. Visit dash.org to learn about Dash. Dash.org.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. US Democratic lawmakers have been meeting on Capitol Hill to discuss the viability of President Joe Biden standing for re-election amid growing calls for him to step down. Biden says he's not going anywhere, despite concerns from his own party about his age and mental agility. Some have classified Tuesday's meetings as make or break for Biden. Democrats in both the House and Senate have huddled to discuss the future of the party and whether they feel Biden should be at the top of the ticket in November's election. Chair of the House Democratic Caucus, Pete Aguilar, agreed there were differing opinions at Tuesday's meeting, but pushed back on suggestions Biden is losing support.
Right now, President Biden is the nominee, and we support the Democratic nominee that will be Donald Trump. That is the fact. That is where we are. And preventing Donald Trump from a disastrous reign.
As Texans pick up the pieces after Hurricane Beryl slammed into the Gulf Coast on Monday, they face another potentially deadlier threat. Millions are without electricity as the heat index soars past 100 degrees Fahrenheit or 40 degrees Celsius. Some officials are warning it could take about 2 weeks to get everyone back online. FSN's Tony Waterman has more from Austin.
State officials say strong winds and heavy rain toppled at least 10 transmission lines. Houston's main utility provider, CenterPoint Energy, says it's mobilized more than 11,000 workers and is aiming to restore power to 1 million customers by the end of Wednesday. But it warned that people in the hardest hit areas could experience extended outages as sweltering heat settles over the state. It could lead to a potentially dangerous situation, people working outside to clear debris from the storm, but having no proper chance to cool off. Tony Waterman, Texas.
NATO leaders are meeting in Washington, D.C. for the 75th anniversary summit, with Ukraine topping the agenda. FSN's Benji Hire has more.
The expanded 32-nation defence pact is vowing to pour more weapons into Ukraine for another year. Yet the big prize, membership, is off the table for now. Instead, senior Biden administration officials say NATO will make other significant announcements, including new steps to bolster Ukraine's air defences. The US president's giving opening remarks today and hosting an event on Thursday with his Ukrainian counterpart Volodymyr Zelensky before holding a press conference to cap the 3-day summit. All eyes on that as Joe Biden fends off calls to quit the presidential race against his predecessor Donald Trump, who's in the past threatened to withdraw from NATO unless European allies pay their fair share. Both foreign and domestic challenges at the fore this week. Benji Hire, Washington.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
What's up? We are back. Hello, all of our liberty-loving friends. This is Liberty at Night with Nate and Charlie on the Free Talk Live Network, coming at you from Nashville, Tennessee. And as always, of course, Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash, which stands, I'm told, for Digital Cash Dash. You get it? They got fees of less than a penny per transaction. That means Dash is made for spending. Dash is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies, and they are widely available in exchanges, including the decentralized Maya protocol and in multi-crypto wallets. Thanks to Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month for this sponsorship. It's easy to get and use Dash. You can learn more at dash.org. That's dash.org. I got to tell you about some other great people as well, like one of them being ExpressVPN. And I'm not going to go into the whole spiel that some people would say when they're talking about ExpressVPN. But you guys know that without some type of VPN, third parties can see every website you visit, even if you're in incognito mode. They can see your ISP, they can see your mobile network provider, the admins of your Wi-Fi network, school, boss, whoever it is. But a VPN reroutes 100% of your traffic through secure encrypted servers, so third parties can't see your browsing history. So it hides your IP address. Super easy to use, by the way. Works on all your devices. And it's also, it's fast, okay? It's very fast. I haven't really tried any of the other VPNs, but I can tell you, we accidentally left ExpressVPN on for a month before I noticed it was on. Like they sent us an account to use so we could talk about them. And I just turned it on and I forgot to ever turn it off. And we stream live to our followers every day. We stream out to multiple platforms. I turned it on my phone, completely forgot it was on, never noticed it, never noticed any slowdown, nothing like that. I used to be really scared that we wouldn't be able to do stuff like that with a VPN turned on, but hey, it turns out you can, okay? So if you're interested, you want to protect your online privacy by using a VPN, you could go to expressvpn.com/GML. That's expressvpn.com/GML. Now, GML stands for Good Morning Liberty. That's our podcast that Charlie and I have. We do a show every single day of the week when we want to. You got to finish out it's every single day of the week when we want to. It's an improper sentence, ends with a preposition. It doesn't sound great, but it sticks in people's heads, okay? So every single day of the week when we want to. Like, for instance, today we're not doing a live show. Thursday and Friday last week, we didn't do a live show. That's because we were traveling. Today, I've been working on, I'm about to travel to Freedom Fest in Las Vegas. Hopefully get some really great interviews while I'm there and also get to see a lot of great speakers. But you've still got 1,288 episodes that you can go listen to on your favorite podcast app, whichever app that is. Mine is Apple, but I don't, that's just because I never checked out any. Some people use Spotify, some people use, I don't know, some of these crazy apps I never heard of before. You tell me, what's your favorite podcast app and why should I stop using Apple? At Good AM Liberty on X. Let me know. Anyway, you can search Good Morning Liberty. At night, we're called Liberty at Night. During the day, we're called Good Morning Liberty. So go check that out. Now, we've been in the middle of a conversation concerning this New York Post article that said that America could soon be subjected to its first DEI president. A lot of people got really upset about that. They're talking about Kamala Harris. If she becomes the president, they're calling her a DEI president, and everyone says this is racist and sexist and whateverist it is. I don't think so. Costco says, did he choose her, though? I mean, I don't. Probably not really. I'm sure a focus group or some political insiders who owed some favors to people and did some poll numbers or whatever. I don't know how any polls ever showed that Kamala Harris was actually going to help. But maybe she did. Maybe just having a black woman on the ticket helped boost them just a little bit. But the thing is, this clearly was a DEI hire, okay? It actually was. And to pretend like it wasn't is just a lie. Mm-hmm. And now we're all supposed to act like she was chosen on her merit because she was the absolute person for the job. Set aside the black part or the woman part, those two things together clearly make her much stronger than everyone else, I guess. There could have been anyone chosen. What if the best possible vice presidential pick was a white guy? Or what if it was a black man? It can't be. Or what if it was a white lady? You know, something like that. It could have been anyone.
It's time for women of color.
And that's the thing. It's time for women of, I mean, literally, that's a thing that people will say. Yeah. And they're not saying, let's go pick the absolute best person for the job. They're saying we have to fulfill this specific criteria right here because it will help us with our voting block. By the way, Republicans do the same thing. I mean, honestly, I'll just 100% honest. Do you think Tim Scott is on the short list or Ben Carson is on the short list? Ben Carson, smart guy, okay? Brain surgeon, kind of smart guy, okay? Mm-hmm. Boring as
rocket surgery.
Boring as F to listen to, okay? Does not super inspiring speakers, either one of these guys. Tim Scott, I'd never heard him talk before because I fell asleep immediately, okay? And I don't really know their track record on anything, but they're not like the most popular Republicans out there or anything. Clearly, these people sit down and they say, here's all of our different voting groups. And turns out sometimes people just pick on the basis of what someone looks like, which is stupid. for anyone to do. Okay. The fact that they do this, by the way, is a reflection of the people in the country. It's their fault that they do this, because if that didn't work, then maybe they would just go pick whoever the best person was, you know? But that's not the case. Some people will literally vote based on what the person looks like. And so they go out and they pick that person. I mean, it's clearly obvious people have been doing this for a long time. Mm-hmm. We all know that. Do you think John McCain picked Sarah Palin because she was so freaking good at her job?
What about Mike Pence?
Yeah, they picked Mike Pence because Trump is crazy and has like a fringe right, far right base, or whatever you want to call it. And they needed to bring in some normies, some of the evangelical normies. They say this is a voting block. We need to pick this person to signal to these people that it's okay.
The ones who believe in conversion therapy.
Yeah, those people. We're not getting the conversion therapists.
The ones who want to shock the gays, you know?
It's clearly what they do.
All right. Harris is already being hailed as the president in waiting as her boss, Sleepy Joe. That's why I thought Trump may have written this. Despite his defiant TV vow to George Stephanopoulos Friday night to stay in the race, increasingly faces reality that his chances of besting Trump are slim.
That's it. So he just did this interview with George Stephanopoulos, and it was a 22-minute interview. Still sounded like crap. He's had so many excuses for this debate.
His health is fine. It's just his brain.
It's just his brain that doesn't work. Actually, he made a joke and said that in a speech.
He did.
He's actually said that.
I
didn't pull up any of that stuff today. He did a radio interview where he seemingly
his health is fine.
Sounded like he
just
said
my mind.
It sounded like he said he was the first black female vice president to a first black president or something like that, is what it sounded like in the interview.
God.
He did 22 minutes in a pre-recorded interview, couldn't even do it live, and it still sounded like crap, where he gave all kinds of excuses for his, he had returned from overseas. He was doing all that stuff.
He was a little sick.
In Normandy. He got back 11 days before the debate. He sat in a freaking recliner at Camp David for a week, and he said he was tired.
Not enough time.
He was too tired.
He's got to go to bed at 8 o'clock now.
No, the aides have actually come out and said that he's good between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. Those are his times, okay? Kind of like Golden Corral,
with a 2-hour lunch, like 12 to 2?
Well, the lunch and the nap afterwards inside of that time also.
He's good from like 10 to noon and then 2 to 4.
Basically, yeah. Okay. Starts to trail off around 3:30, but yeah, we'll just call it 4. I mean, this guy's the president, and they're trying to tell you, like, does anyone actually think that he's going to win, even if he wins, that he's going to serve 4 more years?
That's what they're about to say
in office.
So no, this is why they're predicting Harris to be our DEI president. It might not be wrong. So they continue on here. Even if he does stay and achieves the near impossible by pulling out a victory, you can bet he won't survive 4 years. Whew. Harris becomes the nation's first DEI president by default. For the American people, it would be such an unfair and odd coronation. Remember, she's part of an administration that gave us inflation, world chaos, and an open border that literally invites terrorists to enter the country and kill people. Now, to be fair, Trump brought us inflation as well.
He did. And I don't think that they literally invite terrorists to come here and kill people.
No.
Because they could say that an open border, which results in terrorists entering the country, to kill people. But when you use the word literally, I want to see where they literally invited terrorists to come into the country and kill people. Just choose your words wisely. That's all I have to say about that. Sorry, Charlie's busy over here.
I can't.
He's super enthused.
It's not you. It's not the content.
It's not the content. It's you. That's what's going on right now. Let me ask you this.
It's not you. It's me.
I had a friend ask me over the weekend. His friend's name was John. What I thought was going to happen. Okay. And if it even mattered.
Like the John?
The John. Yeah. And I told him, I don't really care who wins. I know Kamala Harris would be absolutely awful and all that. Biden would still be absolutely awful and all that. Honestly, these recent Supreme Court decisions have given me a little bit more hope for the future and holding back some of the executive branch.
Hope's a dangerous thing.
Maybe not hope, maybe less dread like slightly less dread.
That's better
for the future.
Yeah.
Not exactly hope though.
Just slightly less pessimistic, but you're still pessimistic.
I sort of think that if Trump wins re-election, that we're going to get someone like Gavin Newsom immediately. Remember, Trump only gets 4 years, and he didn't exactly do all that great a job the first time. Best thing he did was put in a few Supreme Court justices that have done some good things. Okay, that's like the best thing that he did.
Like
while he was the president.
They've done good things like create the structure for a dictator.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
Yes, they did that, and that's what I was waiting on this whole time. But no, it's not that I don't want Trump to win. It's that I don't really care that much because maybe the next 4 years would be slightly better, but I think the pendulum is going to swing really hard in the other direction afterwards, and so it makes me actually less hopeful for the future. Whereas I don't know if we have to ride with.
What if he comes in though and is like extremely libertarian, like he said he was going to be?
Sure. What if an asteroid hits Earth tomorrow? You know.
Yeah.
Well, that could happen. That could. It's a good thing. I mean, I guess I want Ross Ulbricht to get his sentence commuted.
I actually think
that's true.
So John is actually saying live right now. This all assumes World War III doesn't break out.
Yeah.
I think our best chance of not going to war is probably Trump.
Probably true.
I mean, unless like Chase won, but that's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I even think Trump's probably better on war than RFK, even though RFK says things.
He does say a lot of things. I think RFK might be better on the military-industrial complex as a whole. I think Trump is against war by default because he thinks it's a bad business decision, and because he thinks that it means you've lost the negotiation. You know, that's like what happens after you lose the negotiation. You have to go to war. And so I think he sees war as like not that he's just so against it because he hates the death and all that. Maybe he does. Sure. I don't think he cares. I mean, he's a psychopath, let's be honest.
Yeah.
All these people are. But I think he's pretty good on war overall. I don't know. I might put RFK and Trump tying on that whole war thing. Chase is clearly better when it comes to war, but you know, that's not going to happen. I'm going to try to talk to him this week at Freedom Fest, by the way, if he'll come over and talk, see if he wants to get into not really a debate, but a discussion where I'm going to try to win. And we'll talk about that whole thing that's keeping people from some of the libertarians from voting for him. I think this election is, I don't know. I don't think the outcome is going to change that many things, to tell you the truth. I think if we stick with Biden, which inevitably leads to Kamala, then we end up with maybe 8 years of a more conservative president afterwards. But that person could suck too. It's not as if a Republican president's going to make my day or anything like that, you know.
Oh, you don't think Trump will run again in 2028?
That's the other thing. What's he going to try to do? You know, does it say it's got to be consecutive terms or something like that? Regardless.
No, I mean, like if he loses in 2024 to
okay.
Biden, you don't think he's going to run again in 2028?
He could, couldn't he? I hadn't really considered that.
It's basically until Trump dies, it's just going to be never ending. He's running for president.
I guess that could be the case.
You know?
Yeah. So might as well get out of the way now. Is that what you're saying?
Maybe. Because if he loses, the 2028, he'll be back.
Man, I got some other stuff here in the stack, like some good things.
Trump will be 100 running for president.
He might do it.
Yeah.
We'll see. Although I don't know. We haven't seen him in 10 days, so I don't know what's going to happen.
Like, Biden died. I'm here. Look, told you I was better.
Let's see. Anything else important as it pertains to the election right now? Not really. Biden says he's staying in. Charlie doesn't think he's staying in. I think Trump hopes he stays in. That might be why Trump is being quiet right now, because he wants to have Biden project some strength for Biden right now, you know, because I think Trump's best chance is against Biden. And so he's just kind of letting Biden do his thing, let Biden convince everyone to keep him on the ticket. And then he thinks that's his best path for victory as well. At the end of the day, the only thing that matters really is that we decrease the power of the government, by the way. Sorry to bring this back to an annoying principled conversation, but the fact that these things matter so much to everyone, the fact that it matters this much to people who becomes the president, that's a problem.
It's because they have the power.
And I keep thinking that we're going to get that someday, that it's going to click in someone's mind.
Even Sotomayor in her dissent argued that the president is the most powerful person in this country and arguably the world.
Yeah.
Why?
And maybe the position, maybe they still do have that much power, even if they were constitutional. I mean, they've got more power than any other one person does, but they shouldn't have the power that these agencies that they have, all these agencies that control our lives, they shouldn't have all that power because the agencies shouldn't exist in the first place. That's why I feel slightly more hopeful after the Chevron decision. Some of these things are getting blocked, by the way. Judge cites new Supreme Court ruling and blocking health care anti-discrimination protections for transgender Americans. So that got blocked right after that decision. Judge is delaying a ban on non-compete agreements. For a small number of employers, they're going to be taking this back and trying to decide if they can, in fact, ban non-compete agreements. I don't like non-compete agreements anyway, but I also don't like the government telling businesses what kind of contracts they can have people sign. I still think that it's on them to figure that out. And so I think we're going to see a lot of dominoes fall like this. And so that's why I feel slightly more hopeful or slightly less dreadful right now that maybe some of the president's power is getting taken away because they control all of these agencies, and these agencies got some of their fangs taken away over the last week or two. And so that's a good thing. But I really want people around the country to realize all this freaking out over who the president is, it's not supposed to be like this. It's not. They're supposed to stay within the Constitution. They're supposed to sign constitutional laws that your representatives actually put out there for him to sign.
In pursuance of the Constitution.
In pursuance. Yeah, they're supposed to be constitutional, and like that's it. But we act like it's life or death every single time, and it's because it is life or death. Because they make all these stupid economic decisions that literally lead to life or death situations for people. They can literally push us into World War III if they want to. It is life or death for a lot of people, and it shouldn't be.
Man, and you watch these individual stories. Like the other night we watched the 2020, I think it was 2020 special about some guy named Leo, whatever. He was wrongfully convicted, spent 36 years in prison. And it turns out this other guy did it. And even though the other guy confessed and they had his fingerprints and everything, the judge was like, well, yeah, we're not going to give you a retrial. We're not going to do it because it's not convincing enough. And
what? Why?
Did you not see it? I thought you were on the 2020s and Datelines.
I don't watch 2020 very much.
Well, it just happened to be on.
Yeah.
Anyway, they basically said there wasn't enough evidence for him to get a retrial. Even though this guy, they basically said that the guy confessing wasn't credible.
Okay.
Like, what?
Did you say there was fingerprints also?
Yeah.
Okay. That seems like evidence.
And what's strange to me is like this, I was talking to Brittany about this the other day, is like some of these things have like real impact on real people's lives, where their lives are literally taken from them. Now, it doesn't happen to most of us because obviously most of us aren't in prison. However, the government can be absolutely brutal if they want to be.
Yeah.
To you. And it doesn't matter what you do. Like it's almost like your protections don't exist. And they don't care. Right? And that is the type of thing that is actually frightening when you get into some of these legal battles or administrative battles with these agencies or whatever it is. It's like no matter what you do, the government just has so much power. They could just absolutely destroy you, and it affects your real life.
Yeah.
I mean, 36 years this guy spent, I don't know, from the time he was, I think, 22 to now 58. His whole life is gone.
Your entire life.
Gone.
Guy's been in prison.
Couldn't have kids. I mean, gone. It's crazy. And guess what? There's no getting any of that back. You've lost your only non-renewable resource, time. And to think about something like that happening to yourself or someone you love, that is where, but the problem is it doesn't happen to most people. And so it doesn't affect hardly anyone. And so people aren't as passionate about those types of things because it's not affecting them.
I think a lot of those shows have done some good, showing how terrible some of these prosecutors and judges can be when they actually have evidence that it wasn't the person, and they don't put in the exculpatory evidence, or they don't want to admit that they made a mistake, basically. And there's been a lot of great shows out there that have shown how bad the prosecutors and the judges, the government, are when it comes to these things, and how they really don't care about, when you solve a crime.
Have you seen the recent updates on the Young Thug trial?
No, I don't know what that is.
Okay, so if you're not familiar, there's a Young Thug trial. Young Thug is on trial now.
How young is this thug?
That's his name. I don't remember his actual name. That's his street name, I guess, or rapper name. I don't know. Now, he might have killed a guy. I don't know. But here's the judge had an ex parte, which means an ex parte means like a separate impromptu meeting with just the prosecution and the prosecution's key witness. And the judge was helping the state try to coerce this witness to testify, or that he was going to be held in jail if he didn't testify. And he's like, I don't want to testify. And they're basically like, well, we're going to hold you in contempt. And he's like, what? I don't want to. Imagine that. Imagine an impartial judge working with the state to try to get somebody to testify, to offer testimony to incriminate someone else. It's insane. That's insane.
What I hope from stories like this is that people realize that story plays all the way up to the people that work in the White House, in the government, your representatives, all of them, and it goes all the way down to the government's prosecutors that try to put people in cages that shouldn't be there. They don't care. They just want to cross it off their list so they can say they were a good prosecutor. You should actually care that the person who committed the crime, like someone that committed the murder, that they're taken off the streets and that there's some kind of justice being done. They don't really care. They don't want to cross it off the list, And if it turns out they're wrong 10 years later, they don't want to admit they were wrong. They'd rather just keep an innocent person in jail because then they don't have to admit that they're wrong. And that same thing, which we all watch on different TV shows on Netflix and 2020 and 48 Hours and all that, goes all the way up to the other people that work in government that we talk about all the time too. And so I think those things are useful if people just realize that this is the nature of the state. Like they literally take your rights away for a living. That's what they do. They take your right to self-ownership away all the time. The right to ownership of your property. They wouldn't be able to exist if they didn't do that. And so, you better be careful how much power you give them. I think we got to go, don't we?
We do. I have to.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm going to go too.
All right. We're going to go.
You want to go?
The government hates you.
Yeah, the government hates you and they're super dangerous and you shouldn't be their friends because they're not yours.
You know who hates the government? God.
Yeah.
GodHatesFeds.com. Go check it out. I mean, you'll see it there. It's on a shirt.
It's
plain English.
It says it on the shirt.
God hates feds. And you can just GodHatesFeds.com.
Coming right up, we'll be talking to Mike Ross, who is running as a libertarian for governor in the great state of North Carolina.
Well, today was an historic occasion in Pennington.
That's right, Diane. The entire town turned out to honor Paul Webster, the area's one gay man with Pennington's first ever Gay Pride Parade. Paul, a 33-year-old hardware store owner, was too shy to ask for a parade, but that didn't stop almost 2,000 residents from showing their support for his homosexuality. Mayor Sue Hallinan organized the parade and even chipped in some of her own money to pay for decorations.
Well, I was channel surfing one day and I came across a program about the Gay Pride. Next time I went to the hardware store, I said, Paul, we're going to throw you a parade. And he just said, oh, please don't do that. I don't want that. I beg you. He just didn't want us to go to the trouble.
He doesn't want to ride on the penis float. He gets motion sickness, so we're going to have him hold the reins instead.
And Penningtonians have already decided on a fairy tale theme for next year's parade.
Oh, that'll be great.
And if Paul has a boyfriend, they can both be dressed up as kings.
Terrific idea.
This is the Onion News Network.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live listen line, 641-793-0191.
The latest episode of Free Talk Live continues with Hour 2 up next after the news here at listen.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. US Democratic lawmakers have been meeting on Capitol Hill to discuss the viability of President Joe Biden standing for re-election amid growing calls for him to step down. Biden says he's not going anywhere, despite concerns from his own party about his age and mental agility. Some have classified Tuesday's meetings as make or break for Biden. Democrats in both the House and Senate have huddled to discuss the future of the party and whether they feel Biden should be at the top of the ticket in November's election. Chair of the House Democratic Caucus, Pete Aguilar, agreed there were differing opinions at Tuesday's meeting, but pushed back on suggestions Biden is losing support.
Right now, President Biden is the nominee, and we support the Democratic nominee that will be Donald Trump. That is a fact. That is where we are. And preventing Donald Trump from a disastrous reign.
As Texans pick up the pieces after Hurricane Beryl slammed into the Gulf Coast on Monday, they face another potentially deadlier threat. Millions are without electricity as the heat index soars past 100 degrees Fahrenheit or 40 degrees Celsius. Some officials are warning it could take about 2 weeks to get everyone back online. FSN's Tony Waterman has more from Austin.
State officials say strong winds and heavy rain toppled at least 10 transmission lines. Houston's main utility provider, CenterPoint Energy, says it's mobilized more than 11,000 workers and is aiming to restore power to 1 million customers by the end of Wednesday. But it warned that people in the hardest hit areas could experience extended outages as sweltering heat settles over the state. It could lead to a potentially dangerous situation, people working outside to clear debris from the storm, but having no proper chance to cool off. Tony Waterman, Texas.
NATO leaders are meeting in Washington, D.C. for the 75th anniversary summit, with Ukraine topping the agenda. FSN's Benji Hire has more.
The expanded 32-nation defence pact is vowing to pour more weapons into Ukraine for another year. Yet the big prize, membership, is off the table for now. Instead, senior Biden administration officials say NATO will make other significant announcements, including new steps to bolster Ukraine's air defences. The US president's giving opening remarks today and hosting an event on Thursday with his Ukrainian counterpart Volodymyr Zelensky before holding a press conference to cap the 3-day summit. All eyes on that as Joe Biden fends off calls to quit the presidential race against his predecessor Donald Trump, who's in the past threatened to withdraw from NATO unless European allies pay their fair share. Both foreign and domestic challenges at the fore this week. Benji Hire, Washington.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Today, what happens next in France following the shock defeat over the weekend of the far right in the second round of the country's election. Tactical voting, and indeed tactical candidate offerings by the left-leaning New Popular Front and President Emmanuel Macron's centrists put paid to the right streams of dominating the government. But with a hung parliament looming, what will the future governing arrangements look like in Paris? Correspondent Peter Allen is there.
So what we have now, we have nobody with an absolute majority, and instead a hung parliament, which makes it very hard for Emmanuel Macron to appoint a prime minister or indeed a government. Emmanuel Macron now has to work out who he wants as the next prime minister. The president of France can rule by decree, for example. Emmanuel Macron's been doing that for a couple of years now. He's not had a majority in the National Assembly. That's easily forgotten. He doesn't even have to appoint a prime minister, a politician as prime minister. He can appoint a technocrat or civil servant. I suspect that's what he'll probably end up doing.
It could all have been very different had the centrists and the left not come together to withdraw candidates in the second round to avoid splitting the vote. But whether they will be able to work together as effectively in the new parliament, well, that's a different matter entirely. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
And the main news again, US Democratic lawmakers are meeting on Capitol Hill to discuss the viability of President Joe Biden standing for re-election amid growing calls for him to step down. Texans are picking up the pieces after Hurricane Beryl, but millions still remain without power amid 100-degree temperatures. And NATO leaders are meeting in Washington, D.C. for the 75th anniversary summit, with Ukraine topping the agenda. There's more from us on X at Feature Story. That's Feature Story News. Nick Harper reporting.
In order to more accurately portray the risks of smoking, the FDA has approved putting a picture of Trish on the cover of all cigarette packs. Clinical trials suggest that images of diseased organs, corpses, and deformed infants all prove less effective than a single photograph of Trish smiling. Smokers can expect to see the graphic campaign as early as next month, paired with a simple line of text that reads, "Cigarettes cause Trish." In Science News, a new study finds that every style of parenting inevitably produces disturbed and miserable adults.
Despite a great variance in parenting styles across populations, from overprotective to permissive, the end product is always the same, a profoundly flawed and joyless human being.
One bright note of the study, adults can find temporary happiness when they're able to perpetuate the cycle of human misery by having children. In other news, the Pulitzer Board adds a giant pumpkin category, and a local man's utter failure in life is a bit of a sore spot. For more news, visit theonion.com/newsbeat.
This is the Onion News Network.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live. Free Talk Live.
What's up, all of our liberty-loving friends? This is another fantastic episode of Liberty at Night with Nate and Charlie on the Free Talk Live network. Charlie won't be joining us for this particular segment because we're going to be having a guest. Before we get into that, of course, I got to tell you that Good Morning Liberty is our daily podcast. Brand new episode every single day of the week when we want to. So check out Good Morning Liberty on your favorite podcast app. 1,288 episodes, or just go to BernieLies.com. Like I said, Charlie isn't here right now, but I'm joined today by Mr. Mike Ross, who is running for governor in the great state of North Carolina as a libertarian. Mike, how's it going?
Nate, great, man. Thanks so much for having me on the show and giving me an opportunity to, talk about liberty and talk about my campaign, running for governor of North Carolina as a libertarian.
Yeah, thank you for being here. I do want to have you introduce yourself properly to everyone who's listening that may not have heard of you before.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. So my name is Mike Ross. I'm a libertarian candidate for governor of North Carolina. I'm 41 years old. Was a small business owner, but I shut down my company really to do this. I'm also a homeschool dad, and I really wanted nothing to do with politics until I saw my local government abusing somebody, and I thought it was wrong, and I said something, hey, I'm just going to go speak to my local city council. It turned into 9 rallies, a federal lawsuit, and some libertarians bugging me for a couple months to run for governor. And at the 9th rally, when we had body cam footage kind of in hand, a couple of wins there, I finally caved to the pressure. We had a contested primary. I was up against someone who, had been on the ballot a lot of times as a libertarian, had 174,000 votes. So I thought, hey, I've never ran for anything, but I have an amazing team. Had a good strategy to go out and reach out to libertarians in the county affiliates. Won that primary. So now looking forward to taking it into this, big final November push against, a proxy for Donald Trump and a proxy for Joe Biden, the two guys that we are ultimately dumber for having to listen to yesterday.
Yeah.
For choosing to. We didn't have to. We
That's true.
We chose to.
That's true. Well, if you don't mind, what was the situation that got you involved? Maybe I've heard of it, maybe I haven't, but you said you had a lot of rallies and it sounds like it was a pretty big deal. What was that?
Yeah. So being that you're a libertarian, you probably did, because I had my friend Spike Cohen kind of calling the big dogs in national attention. But the whole situation with Joshua Rohrer, who was a homeless veteran who had his service dog tased in Gastonia, I knew, I know that area. I drove past him, seen him a bunch of times, and knew that he was always, he was not the guy who's running over, knocking on your windows, bugging you for money. He would just smile and wave. People would give him dog food, money, stuff like that. So when his service dog got tased, and I read about that in the paper, I'm like, hey, does the city council even know about that? So that's how I met Pastor Moses. Also, Spike got involved with that. So that was kind of the the baby that started with just me going to my local city council, and I called in my buddy Joe Garcia, who was at the time the chair of the Libertarian Party of North Carolina, and said, Joe, I've never spoken in public before on this. Will you just come with me to talk to my local city council as moral support? And then fast forward, it was a pretty crazy year. I got pretty comfortable speaking to politicians, and fast forward to now, and now apparently I'm auditioning to be one, despite the fact that I am really an activist at heart.
Well, I hope you're not a real politician, because I'm sure we both feel the same way. But I guess you spoke to a lot of politicians. I'm sure that was really fun. I think we should take a moment to give a shout out to Spike Cohen and You Are the Power. I mean, they do such great work, right?
It was a situation where if Spike didn't come in, I don't know if we would have gotten the wins that we got out of that, right? We're still waiting on how the federal lawsuit's going to put out, but we put out the calls, had a couple of early rallies, and Spike coming in brought in national attention, and I think that was really what allowed those 9 rallies to happen successfully. So Spike, I wanted you to be my, on the ballot with you this year. I bugged you a lot. If you're watching this, I bugged you a lot before that I would have loved to share a ballot with you this November. But yeah, Spike, you're awesome. Thank you for everything, man, and thank you for all you do with You're the Power. You're making a real difference in real people's lives. So just a little bit more about yourself. Can you give us sort of an overview of your philosophy as a libertarian? Have you always been a libertarian? Did you go through this big shift from one party or another? Like, how did that come about? Yeah, man, it's been kind of I think I went through all the libertarian phases. Like, I think I've been a small L libertarian forever, because it just makes sense with like that morality that we're taught as kids. Hey, don't hurt people, don't take their stuff. And for some reason we lose that and think it's okay when government does it. But, I went through the thing. I grew up in the bluest county in Florida, Broward County, right? The one that's always late and always very blue. My mom at the time worked for an attorney who was one of Bill Clinton's best friends. So I met the Clintons and was very blue. My first election when I was 18 was in Florida voting for Al Gore. Right. So I kind of know how all the Republicans felt in 2020. Like I felt that viscerally because I was that kid back then. And then, I realized, as libertarians, the party wasn't really getting huge traction. So I kind of bounced around. Right. Like I grew up there. I was a registered Democrat for a while, registered Republican, registered independent, kind of just politically homeless as a small L libertarian. And then, I realized, hey, LP's been around for a long time. And if us small L libertarians are not getting involved to make it there, like, how are we really going to concentrate that power? So after kind of seeing how bad the uniparty choices were in 2020, I said, you know what, let me get involved with the party. So I joined the party, got involved, became the state party treasurer. You jump into the party, you get a lot of hats thrown on you. And now, I'm saying, look, I've seen what the Republicans do. I've seen what the Democrats do. They've talked me into their game of voting for lesser of two evil and jumping in before. You fooled me before. You're not going to fool me again. I'm a libertarian, and I'm just going to fight as a libertarian unashamedly.
Well, maybe. So I don't know if you know this, but I was a libertarian, then I left in 2020, and then I said I was never going to do it, and it was pointless. And then I recently just joined, actually, after the convention of all things, even though I wasn't super pumped about the convention, but I decided it was time to join because I found out that I actually cared about what happens in the Libertarian Party. And I was sitting here as a libertarian telling other people that they needed to fix what I thought needed fixed. And that I realized that didn't sound very libertarian, waiting for other people to solve my problems for me. But maybe you could speak to some of those other small L libertarians that are out there and why they could actually get involved. I don't want to, maybe it's kind of a secret, but you could get involved and you could actually have some jobs affecting change in your area pretty quickly because there's a lot of small L people and not as many big L people that are actually getting involved.
Yeah, man. And I know that I'm running for governor now, but that's actually where the biggest wins for liberty are, right? Where, you look at the presidential race, you even look at my gubernatorial race, if we can get this moonshot and move the needle towards liberty a lot all at once, that's fantastic. But we've got wins for your town board, your local mayor. Those are so easy to win if you just organize and go out, talk to people in your community. And I kind of did a test run this last municipal election. I talked to my best friend locally to run for town commissioner, right? And there's 5,000 people in my town, tiny little town. It's usually like, oh, wow, you got 1,200 votes. That was great turnout and you won kind of thing. So we actually met, and I've never seen the GOP in my town turn out and show out the way they were when they had an independent challenger. And it was pretty great because one person from their slate, they ran as a slate of 3. They came over and were just talking, hey, what's your campaign about? And we kind of listed this whole long list of things, which, he's an independent. He's not a libertarian, but he's got me as a best friend. So he's got to listen to a lot of libertarian stuff. And we came up with like a platform that worked for our community. It was like, end the corporate welfare and like subsidizing nonprofits that are operating a bar. Focus on the basics like roads and infrastructure instead of all this other stuff. Getting back to the basics. And the funny thing is, after that meeting, 2 weeks later, that GOP slate flyered his whole neighborhood with his exact platform. And I said, dude, look at what you just did. You wrote a platform for what you wanted for our community. You ran against it. And now this slate that won literally put it in black and white, exactly what you and your neighbors thought was needed. You made change and you didn't even have to do the job. Like, those are the ways that I see libertarians winning is, you put enough fear or pressure on the uniparty. And if your policies are what your voter base for your community wants, they're either going to bend or they're going to lose. I look at most of our libertarian wins. You look at how many we have elected, and we do have a lot of wins at smaller local levels, but we don't have the presidency, we don't have governorships, but we've made a lot of positive impact in cannabis legislation, sanctuary cities for guns, and other things, right? Like this whole idea of pushing back a nullification, gay marriage. We've been at the forefront of so many things that it takes getting the population to be popular before the uniparty, either the R or the D fake wing, will hop on and say, okay, yep, we're going to go with this, and it's a win. At the end of the day, if we move the needle towards liberty, hey, we're winning. We need more of that and less of the fighting and bickering and the uniparty action within our party. We had enough of that. The R&D.
Totally agree. And so getting to North Carolina, I'll be honest with you, I don't know a whole lot about North Carolina politics or how the state's doing in general with things, but what are some of the major campaign issues that you're running on?
Yeah, man. So we're a weird state, right? Like we have a GOP supermajority because they've gerrymandered the hell out of our state. So veto-proof supermajority. But you look at the presidential elections, it's pretty close. We're considered a purple state and a swing state. We have a blue governor. But the reality of the situation is neither the R or the D party in North Carolina is doing anything that the people of North Carolina want. They're all in the pockets of special interests. Republicans continuously claim, that they're for small government, lower taxes. Well, I'm in a red county. 7 out of 7 seats are Republican. Okay. We're the county over from, our House Speaker, one of the most influential Republicans in our state. We just paid the highest property tax bill in the history. I've been here, 20 something years, highest property tax bill ever. And the audacity of these gaslighting Republicans in my county is they actually used our tax dollars to send us a flyer advertising that we have the lowest tax rate ever. Well, yeah, it's because you mandated this, this reappraisal and without an offer to buy, regardless of the condition of the house. And now you've got this situation where everybody's making the largest tax payment. And to me, that gaslighting, like if that's what you're doing and you're just not going to actually believe in small government and limiting taxes, so be it. But don't send me a letter with my own money gaslighting me like that my taxes are low when I just cut the check.
Wait,
and the Democrats,
so they kept the same rate, but they reappraised everything at higher rates?
Yeah, so they reappraised all of the property, right? So like a lot of properties went from 125 to 150. I mean, we saw almost like 80 to 100% jump in the tax appraised value. So they didn't keep the rate the same. They dropped the rate. Okay, so the actual rate on the value is the lowest ever. But when you look at the actual tax payment, it was the highest tax payment any property owner in this county ever paid. And they sent us a letter advertising the low tax rate. Right, it's one thing to if you're just going to do it, but that was the thing that was like the icing on the cake. Like you're trying to sell that you're a limited government, low tax, when every single person in the county just wrote the largest check in dollars they ever did. The Democrats, they talk so much about criminal justice reform and ending the drug war and all these things that libertarians like to hear. But I was the one organizing 9 rallies when a homeless veteran and a lifelong Democrat pastor were being abused by the government, and nobody from the Dems showed up. My opponent, Josh Stein, he's the Democrat candidate for governor. We wrote him letters pleading for help when his DA was trying to block body cam footage and Railroad ignores it. So those are kind of the things I'm looking at. Hey, what do the Republican and Democrats claim to care about that we know that libertarians kind of overlap on? And let me put forward a platform that addresses these things, right? But it really addresses them in a way that I know their voters will like that are still libertarian. So I chose to focus on, government transparency, the economy, healthcare, education, and criminal justice reform. Because those are things that I think what the R's and D's are putting is big state solutions that are not in the best interest of North Carolinians. And if we could push those issues and make them better on any of those issues, that's a win.
Well, so we probably agree on these things, but maybe speaking to some of these Republicans and Democrats, why do you think less state involvement would be better in something like education, for example? Why would that be better? Doesn't that mean that poor kids wouldn't be able to go to school or something like that? I don't know.
Yes. So it's funny because I joke that, I'm ideologically very much in the Javier Milei vein, very Rothbardian as far as the influence as far as my philosophy. But I took an approach where I joke that my own health or my own education plan is so socialist. But I joke, and it's something that takes back to a conversation where that I had with Spike, where he's like, we're not even pitching like first best solutions. We're pitching fourth best solutions because they're better than the status quo. And I said, hey, look, our Constitution says that we have to provide an education. The state of North Carolina Constitution says that we have to provide an education. Okay, so we'll go with that because I think the ultimate libertarian position that's correct is just get the state out of it completely. So I took the approach of, okay, well, what do I know? Well, I know that competition is in the best interest of consumers. I know that we spend about $13,000 a year per student. And I know that our teachers are paid, quite frankly, embarrassingly low based on the economic value that should be there. So I actually said, hey, let's take this into the ultimate school choice. You got $13,000 per student. Let's kind of just cap it where it is immediately and just give that directly to the parents to allocate. If they want to send their kid to the public school, that $13,000 goes there. If they want to hire 5 different tutors to teach it, I don't care. Just give that money to the parents. And what you'll have is you'll have competition for those dollars. What I see happening, because I look at it through the lens of economics and free markets, I say, wow, a teacher's going to realize I could take 10 kids that I'm currently teaching, go start a micro school, run it out of my house, and now I'm operating on a $130,000 a year budget. I could probably provide these kids lunches, all this stuff, and still double what I'm being paid. And it's because this system has so much bloat between costs associated with operating facilities, district and regional level administrators that are making 6-figure salaries while providing no actual education to a single child. If you force them to compete, I think that the public school system will abolish itself. Or, if not, it'll get a heck of a lot better. But either way, our kids are going to get a better outcome. Because I look at the reality in like some of our big cities like Charlotte. I was looking at a presentation that someone was doing on ninth grade math and literacy rates. And like they were projecting this big goal over the next 5 years to get their like on grade math proficiency in this district from 5% to 25% proficiency. And I'm just looking at this like, so your goal is to get to a 75% failure rate and you're going to pat yourself on the back if you do that. And I'm just like, just pull this out. I promise you, if you just give other options and let the free market and give that parent the opportunity to direct that. Because I see private schools around me. Like I used to send my kid to a private school. There's a private school that you could send your kid to that has like way better outcomes than most public schools. And it's like $9,000 a year. We're spending $13,000 a year for the public school system. Like,
yeah,
the only way this exists is because the government maintains the monopoly, and I seek to break the monopoly.
Why do you think there's so much pushback on this from people? A lot of it is really on the left, I guess, Democrats or whatever. But how these stats are so easy to find, and it's so easy to make these points, and still there's so many people who say this would just be terrible if you give the parents the money to pay for wherever the kid wants to go. And I truly don't understand how people can sleep at night while still making these arguments. How do you think that's even possible?
Well, I think it's a couple of things, right? And this is a libertarian show, so I guess we could put the tinfoil hat on a little bit, right? Yeah. Not without leaning fully into it. But I think you have to kind of segment it between the average person and someone who's tied to the status quo, right? Because the reason why politicians want it to continue, to me, is like really straightforward. You have a wonderful system that you have force and coercion to ensure that future voters are going to hear whatever we want. And then you say, would you rather have or not have ideological capture to determine how that's used? So from the politician and the system and the establishment standpoint, It's just a matter of like economic self-interest, I believe, that they look at it and say, hey, if we do away with this system, we lose the ability to have all of this influence on the minds of future generations. I think for the parents, it kind of goes to the other side. And I think a lot of it is we're very heavily propagandized, and I would argue in many cases brainwashed society, especially over certain things, right? The gold standard, the federal, like there's a lot of things as libertarians we're like, hey, just wake up to reality, and you kind of lose that. I think public school teachers, a lot of us have been touched personally by public school teachers who have made a difference in our life. And when you have something that on a visceral level is tied to some kind of memory or some kind of positive emotional thing, I think you grow an attachment to that. So for everyone who hears failing public schools, they think back to that wonderful teacher who made them a better person. And they kind of hit that cognitive dissonance. That and the fact that the Uniparty does a great job of dividing us against our neighbors and making everything so polarizing, because that's my fear with the way the GOP is doing it in North Carolina. The most logical outcome I see with everything they're doing with this opportunity scholarship school choice program is all they're going to do is set up the future takeover of private education by the government. You're going to get all these government schools hooked on these dollars, and then they're going to say, oh, you're going to teach this, or we're going to cut off the money. And then all of these schools are going to be like, okay, we're going to keep this. Great. You've now just turned non-public education into the same problematic issue that I have with public education. So that's why I say the real best way to do it is, if our Constitution requires us to provide it, great. Have the minimal involvement. Do nothing other than facilitate the movement of that money. And then hopefully in a decade or two, we'll have enough of an education that we can actually talk about, hey, how do we lower this and truly get the state out of it and maybe even change the Constitution? But for where it stands now, I'm just saying, hey, just do like real direct socialism, put all of it there. Parents in full control of everything, and make the schools compete. Because I think micro schools and everything else, like everything logical about how the economics of it would flow is that teachers would get paid more, outcomes would be better, and taxpayers would be better off. So I don't like socialism, but I'll take it if that's the expected outcome versus the status quo.
I haven't heard anyone make this argument. It's cracking me up right now about just elect real direct socialism. But I haven't heard anyone say it that way. That's great.
I'm not a politician, so I'm just going to tell you the truth. Good, bad, ugly. I'm just going to tell you the truth. And if the truth is socialism is better than what we have now, and because of the Constitution, I can't actually advocate for a real free market. I'm going to get you the closest we can with the confines of what I'm working with, guys.
I love it. So in the last couple minutes here, why don't you tell us about your major opponents in this race and why you are the better choice?
Yeah, so let me, obviously, if you're a libertarian, check it out. I'm the libertarian, so please come vote for me. But if you're watching this show and you're in North Carolina, if you're a Democrat, if you care about actually reforming the criminal justice system, ending qualified immunity, the drug war, stopping this victimless crime, Josh Stein put it out there just the other day. He is not serious about that. I am. I will full stop pardon every single nonviolent possession charge of this nonsense across the state, and I'll do it every single day. So if you actually believe in those things, you have a real choice, and it's not Josh Stein. Republicans in North Carolina, if you care about the Second Amendment, there's 29 states that have constitutional carry. There is a current push for our supermajority to make us number 30. Gun rights groups have been lobbying our legislature. I have been there. Mark Robinson, despite having a wonderful speech on 2A that kicked off his whole political career, was out of state fundraising with Trump instead of pushing to get constitutional carry in our state. I promise you, if you're right or left, look at my platform, have a chat. I will deliver more than the Uniparty will, because the Uniparty works for their special interest groups, not for you. I'm a libertarian, but I'll work for you. Head over to firetheuniparty.com to learn more. Same thing, at Fire the Uniparty on all the socials.
All right, I'm going to put the link to all those things in the show notes for today's show. Mike, thank you so much for your time. I'd love to have you back on before the election to talk again about other stuff that's going on if you're interested. And
anytime, man.
And once again, everyone, the links are going to be in the show notes, firetheuniparty.com. And Mike, thank you so much for your time. Okay, coming right up, we're going to have the first part of Dumb Bleep of the Week. Dumb Bleep of the Week, that's everyone's favorite segment on our podcast, Good Morning Liberty, and also I think it's everyone's favorite segment when it comes to Liberty at Night as well. We'll get to vote and see who said the dumbest thing in the last week.
The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. US Democratic lawmakers have been meeting on Capitol Hill to discuss the viability of President Joe Biden standing for re-election amid growing calls for him to step down. Biden says he's not going anywhere, despite concerns from his own party about his age and mental agility. Some have classified Tuesday's meetings as make or break for Biden. Democrats in both the House and Senate have huddled to discuss the future of the party and whether they feel Biden should be at the top of the ticket in November's election. Chair of the House Democratic Caucus, Pete Aguilar, agreed there were differing opinions at Tuesday's meeting, but pushed back on suggestions Biden is losing support.
Right now, President Biden is the nominee, and we support the Democratic nominee that will be Donald Trump. That is a fact. That is where we are. And preventing Donald Trump from a disastrous reign.
As Texans pick up the pieces after Hurricane Beryl slammed into the Gulf Coast on Monday, they face another potentially deadlier threat. Millions are without electricity as the heat index soars past 100 degrees Fahrenheit or 40 degrees Celsius. Some officials are warning it could take about 2 weeks to get everyone back online. FSN's Tony Waterman has more from Austin.
State officials say strong winds and heavy rain toppled at least 10 transmission lines. Houston's main utility provider, CenterPoint Energy, says it's mobilized more than 11,000 workers and is aiming to restore power to 1 million customers by the end of Wednesday. But it warned that people in the hardest hit areas could experience extended outages as sweltering heat settles over the state. It could lead to a potentially dangerous situation, people working outside to clear debris from the storm, but having no proper chance to cool off. Tony Waterman, Texas.
NATO leaders are meeting in Washington, D.C. for the 75th anniversary summit, with Ukraine topping the agenda. FSN's Benji Hire has more.
The expanded 32-nation defence pact is vowing to pour more weapons into Ukraine for another year. Yet the big prize, membership, is off the table for now. Instead, senior Biden administration officials say NATO will make other significant announcements, including new steps to bolster Ukraine's air defences. The US president's giving opening remarks today and hosting an event on Thursday with his Ukrainian counterpart Volodymyr Zelensky before holding a press conference to cap the 3-day summit. All eyes on that as Joe Biden fends off calls to quit the presidential race against his predecessor Donald Trump, who's in the past threatened to withdraw from NATO unless European allies pay their fair share. Both foreign and domestic challenges at the fore this week. Benji Hire, Washington.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
What up, all of our liberty-loving friends? This is another fantastic episode of Liberty at Night with Nate and Charlie on the Free Talk Live Network, coming at you from Nashville, Tennessee. We're going to be getting into what we call Dumb Bleep of the Week. We've been calling it that for, I don't know, like 4 years or so. We go through all the dumbest things that happened and the dumbest things that were said throughout every week. And in our live group, the Fed Haters Club, which you could get to if you wanted to by going to joingml.com, they throw in submissions. People on Twitter throw in submissions. And of course, I throw in a bunch too. I normally narrow the list down to about 10 or so items or categories. And then we go through those, and the people that are listening live on our private Discord channel, that's we call them the Fed Haters Club, well, they get to go in there and vote for which one was the dumbest thing. At the end of the year, we take the winner from each week, and we break them down into quarters of the year, months, and then into quarters, and then they get down into the dumb bleep of the year bracket tournament challenge. And the winner, whoever said the absolute dumbest thing for the entire year, according to the Fed Haters Club, they get a trophy sent to them. And the person who submitted whatever that item is, they get a trophy sent to them for their beautiful submission and participation as well. So maybe you want to go to joingml.com. This first bit here, I know we're going to be talking about the presidential immunity decision. Although we're not going to be bringing you our full thoughts on that whole thing, I'd recommend going to your podcast app and searching Good Morning Liberty and going to our recent episode where we went through in detail the Supreme Court's decision on Trump's immunity and presidential immunity. It's somewhat nuanced and confusing because as libertarians, we don't want presidents to have any immunity, but also at the same time, we don't like it that Democrats and people online are acting like all of a sudden these presidents are going to be acting like kings and dictators when we know that previous presidents throughout the years have broken plenty of laws that other people have to abide by. In fact, the entire government apparatus can only exist if they break laws that the rest of us are subjected to. I don't know, maybe one of them would be theft. I can't just come take your money from your bank account without your permission and then do whatever I want with it, but that's what they live off of. So let's get into that conversation. We already talked about this yesterday, so we'll kind of breeze by a little bit of stuff. We know what Joe Biden's reaction was to the Supreme Court ruling on presidential immunity, and he said that they basically made a king. He said that there was virtually no limits on presidential powers now.
He said any president, including Donald Trump, will now be freed to ignore the law.
And not only is that not factually accurate, because the president is still susceptible to impeachment
and prosecution.
Prosecution still, if they're doing things outside of their constitutional duties. But on top of that, the president is also susceptible to, judges blocking some of their unconstitutional orders, as Biden knows, because of like the things that we mentioned yesterday with the vax mandates, the student loan relief, those kind of things. He was also, by the way, vice president for Barack Obama, who spied on American citizens. And so did Bush, and so did Trump, and so does Biden right now. Okay, so I'm not just singling out Obama. Obama also drone bombed American citizen overseas without due process. Just numerous things that presidents have done that you could say were criminal, unconstitutional behaviors that have been totally fine.
That they all receive immunity for.
They do, like de facto immunity. What essentially the status quo is, we don't prosecute presidents for breaking the law because every single one of them has to break the law and do criminal things. It's just kind of part of the job. And everyone has decided, Trump didn't go after Obama. Obama didn't go after Bush for war crimes. Bush didn't go after Clinton for whatever it was. They just don't do it.
Yeah.
And that cycle of ignoring a president's crimes was broken.
Yeah. Even love crimes.
Yeah. Stuff like that. And so they basically said, no, we're going to go back to the status quo, what it used to be. We're not going to have every new president prosecute a former president. You can disagree with that. We happen to disagree. We think the president should be afraid to do anything, along with everyone else who's in the government.
They should be held liable for the crimes that they've committed.
So,
especially violating the Constitution.
Yeah.
Like spying on you.
But
this direct violation of the 4th and 5th Amendment.
Yeah. This guy doesn't think that. He's still violating the 4th Amendment. He still violates the first. They're still jawboning social media companies trying to get them to shut down speech.
I see a trending article just popped up that apparently Biden is telling a key ally that he's considering dropping out.
I saw that come up a little bit ago. That's why I wore my Let's Go Brandon hat today in support of Brandon. because it's kind of sad. You know, it's kind of sad to see this thing happen. It is kind of looking more and more like he's actually going to drop out. We also have this clip from Rachel Maddow, who only tells the truth. Of course, the important quote in this is the only fix to this is to put someone in the White House from here on out who will not abuse the absolutely tyrannical power they have just been legally granted in perpetuity. I don't guess we actually have to play the clip because we do have a lot of stuff in this show.
What a face.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good face. That's her getting her 100th vax put in right now. That's what it looks like, you know.
People probably think she's a druggie, you know. She's got all these track marks. No. Those are just my boosters.
We can listen to her talk a little bit about this.
Policy. And we know that Trump, in fact, tried to get his Justice Department to bring improper, politically motivated prosecutions against people while he was president, and indeed to improperly exclude him from federal investigation in the case that ultimately resulted in state court in his 34 felony convictions in New York. So we know that he is very...
She's got a very slappable face. I don't know if you noticed that.
Yeah.
I guess I have to cut in
very punchable throat.
Just you want to hit her right in the Adam's apple. You know?
Exactly. Yeah, I would never hit a woman. I would never do such a thing.
I don't want it to be lost on anyone.
But if I was going to, it'd be Rachel Maddow.
Keep in the back of your mind the Russiagate hoax that occurred where people were going after Trump for 3 years. That was completely predicated on the Steele dossier and previous. I mean, for them to just
fake.
Completely ignore this now and act like, oh, well, Trump went after his political opponents. He's the one who started this. He's the one that... It just ain't gonna fly, man. People remember this kind of stuff.
Very facile with this. This is what he wants to do. This is what he thinks power should be. Who's my Roy Cohn, right? And now the Supreme Court has said without reservation and without limit, yeah, you can do that. We promise you explicitly in the ruling, in the language of the ruling, not even in a footnote, anything you say to your Justice Department is subject to immunity for you.
They didn't say that actually.
And
well,
that
the immunity
is,
for DOJ actually was in there.
The rule of law means in this country that the law is not used as an instrument of the ruler. Kind
of funny, you know, Biden's DOJ is the one going after Trump this whole time. And, you know, they had that her investigation into the classified documents, and they invoked executive privilege and executive immunity to not release the audio tapes of it. The DOJ is fighting that and fighting the subpoenas on that, and Merrick Garland risking going to jail because they've invoked executive privilege on it. And so anyhow, there's stuff to remember there.
The rule of law is supposed to constrain the ruler. And the Supreme Court just undid that. And it's binding. And it's now the way our country is structured. And the only way out of this, the only fix to this, there's no fix to this that involves impeaching Supreme Court justices. There's no fix to this that involves a new argument or a new case. The only fix to this is to put someone in the White House from here on out who will not abuse the absolutely tyrannical power they have just been legally granted in perpetuity.
So one of my main issues with that statement right there is something we mentioned yesterday. By the way, go back and listen to yesterday's episode. It was a real banger of an episode.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I was throwing stuff, yelled the F word. It was a fun show. Really fun time.
It really got him going.
You know? Really got me going. To pretend like just now the president has been given tyrannical powers, tyrannical authority, after everything we've been through as a country, just look at like over the last 100 years or so, something like that, to act like just now, because they can't be held criminally if like all these other presidents, they could have easily been held criminally liable. And the only thing that stopped that from happening was that they didn't commit any crimes.
Yeah.
That was it. You know, to pretend like this is somehow the case. And now our only answer as a country is to accept the fact that the president just now has been given tyrannical authority. And so now we can only put brain dead, senile old folks in the office. And that's all we can do, or good people in that office, to make sure that they don't abuse that power. One thing it could do is
there were cases against Obama when it came to the American citizens that died.
Yeah.
And the courts ruled that he had immunity.
Got dismissed.
It was dismissed. I mean, this isn't the first case against the president.
No, it's not.
It's just the first one that went, Not the
Were
first
those
one that
civil
went to-
cases? Were those civil lawsuits from the families? I'm
I don't
not sure the
remember.
details on those cases.
Probably.
Maybe someone in the group knows. Maybe they can tell us. The other thing you could do is not rely on a benevolent dictator to come into the office, which is essentially what she's saying. You could take away a bunch of the powers that the government has, make sure that they don't have all of this power and this tyrannical authority. That's one thing you could do, is not accept that our government should be intimately involved in every single thing.
You could say that the Supreme Court should only rule that the president has immunity on constitutional authority.
Yeah.
And
could do
anything
that.
outside of that is unofficial. Because the only official acts of a president are actually the constitutional acts. That's actually the only thing that's official. You could make that argument.
This is a pretty funny one, and it's not exactly tied to what we've been talking about, but I
Are you making
entitled
fun of her hair again?
entitled Dumbleat number 1 was just called Biden. And last week or the week before, I guess, I believe the winner was the cheap fakes. Was them out there saying that these edited videos, these cheap fakes, these deep fakes, that people were making things up to make Biden look bad. And then, of course, the debate happened.
He was strong.
Yeah.
He works.
Strong as I've ever seen.
He works day in and day out. Outworks everyone. You know?
He's focused. He's sharp as a tack. They all had these lines that they had to go out there and say. And you can tell that they were talking points that were given to them. And now all of a sudden, after the debate, they know that they can't just outright lie. They're acting like they just found out. The media is actually acting like they were lied to this whole time and that they had no clue that Biden was this far gone.
Because they believe the White House spokesperson.
And this is new information to them somehow. This is the case. Well, KJP was asked about the cheap fakes and if she regretted calling people out for that. And she just had a great response.
The administration strongly criticized the media for clips showing the president appearing to be confused, freezing at times, and you called it cheap fakes, misinformation, disinformation. In one case, even implied that it was the product of artificial intelligence, calling it deep fakes. Do you have any regret over using that language?
Not at all. Not at all. And let me be clear, it was a certain part of the media. And, I mean, you can speak to this better than I can, a certain part of the media which was doing this. And look, independent, mainstream fact checkers in the press and misinformation experts have been calling out cheap fakes. And at the end of the day, they're fakes. That's what they were, targeting the president. They had said, the reporters and these misinformation experts said that this president was being targeted. And what we did was echo them. That's what we did. And look, we'll certainly continue to call that out. And the cheap fakes didn't come from me. I didn't coin that. I didn't come from this White House or this podium. That came from the media. They called it cheap fakes. And they said this president, President Biden, was being targeted on misinformation. It was purposefully being done to this president. And what we did is we echoed that. So I don't regret it at all.
Oh my God. I can't handle any more gaslighting.
Yeah.
And just pure, I don't even know how she can't. And I miss the times when God would just strike people down with lightning bolts for this type of behavior.
We live in the wrong time, man.
You know? How are the fleas from 1,000 Campbells not currently infesting her hair right now? You know? Her apartment should be filled with locusts.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Bring back
be.
the plagues
Mm-hmm.
for these witches. I didn't call for a steak or nothing.
No, I was going to say, you know what they used to do to the witches?
I was calling for God.
They make
actually,
movies about them.
God to send plagues down.
Yeah.
And, typically you would see these people fall over to look people and the camera straight in the eye, straight in the face, and just gaslight them right in front of them for all the world to see.
So
Jesus.
The really annoying part about that is the complete lack of responsibility whatsoever, the blame shifting and the deflection that she did, because it's not like a couple weeks ago she was up there saying, well, the media says that these are called cheap fakes and therefore we're calling them cheap fakes and deep fakes. Like, no, they were out there saying these are cheap fakes and something must be done about
also,
these
who
deep
are
fakes
these
and all that.
Misinformation experts?
I don't know. No clue, but apparently...
Did they get a degree in misinformation?
I'm sure they did. Most people who go to college get a degree in misinformation. Yeah.
God bless.
Okay.
How am I going to vote?
I'm probably not going to.
This
is the
dumb. This is
the
so
answer.
dumb.
Number 2.
Oh, that was all number 1.
That was all number 1. Call Biden. Number 2. Kamala Harris is the top choice to replace Joe Biden if he steps aside.
Well, she sucks.
Sources say. And I don't know. She might have a chance. I'm saying there might be a chance.
She's not Trump.
I still think that without all of the age stuff with Biden, that he'd be beating Trump pretty easily because there's a lot of people who hate Trump, and those people might vote for Kamala Harris. You know, and she might be able to get a certain portion of the other vote. You know,
the 19th Amendment vote.
The people who like imprisoning black people. You know,
yeah.
No, I mean, she might be able to get a certain portion of the other vote, whoever those people might be. And this, if she wins, let me tell you what, the show's going to blow up. It's going to be great. I can't wait for it. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
Now, they're the new fearless leader. By the way, they have to go to her. I pointed this out in a tweet earlier, and other people have made the same point.
Because she's already on the ballot.
No, they have to go to her because it would be racist if they don't. That is the actual answer. They cannot sidestep the first female half black vice president or whatever it is. Black vice president, I guess. I watched the racial draft, and I think she was drafted by the Black Caucus. So they have to go with that, or they'll be racist and sexist. And so their willingness, and by there I mean the left, their willingness to push CRT and DEI and all these things to all of their supporters, and for everyone to believe this means that they are left with their really only option is to go with one of the only people who people like less than Joe Biden, who is Kamala Harris, who has a lower approval rating than Joe Biden at this point.
That guy.
Yeah. And that is because the rubric that they have set up that says if they don't go with her, well, then clearly it's because they're racist and sexist. And so they have to do that. Also, she is the vice president, so natural thing. But Kamala Harris has done a few dumb things here. One thing she said that Elon Musk called her out on. What'd she say, Charlie?
She said Donald Trump would ban abortion nationwide. President Joe Biden and I will do everything in our power to stop him and restore women's reproductive freedom.
Okay, so that's just your run-of-the-mill lie. Mm-hmm. They asked him about that in the debate, and he said, no, I wouldn't sign a national abortion ban. He's been asked by other media publications. He said, no, I wouldn't sign a national abortion ban. But you still just come out and say those things. That's fine. She also had these comments to give, and this was a little bit ago, but it has to do with abortion. And so I wanted to bring this up.
You know, 3 years ago, when I was the United States Senator, I asked the question, freedoms. You know, 3 years ago,
was she expecting applause or something?
Senator, I asked the question, can you think of any laws that give the government power to make decisions about the male body? And the response, you'll recall, was essentially, can't think of any.
Huh. Must not have been asked any men, because I would have said, yeah, they can draft me and force me to go die for some stupid reason.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And put me in prison if I don't answer the call of, hey, we're going to force you to go die.
Hey, we need to go drone bomb some American citizens overseas. Sign up or we'll put you in a cage.
So yes, I can think of something, but that's just, that's just one other example of how great she is. But what about when she's interacting, with the people, showing how cool she is, and she's in pop culture, like Obama. He did a good job going on shows, stuff like that, doing appearances.
She talks like she's high on pills.
Oh, listen, you must have got some misinformation. I mean, just listen to how good she is at this. She's so good.
No, Taraji. Now, I wouldn't do that, especially not to a fellow bison. The real HU? So what's on your mind?
Is there a difference in her accent that you guys hear that's different from when she's speaking up in front of other crowds at all?
I didn't hear any Ebonics in there.
Can anyone tell any differences? I don't know.
Didn't hear any.
I don't know.
Now, I wouldn't do that, especially not to a fellow bison. The real HU? So what's on your mind?
Oh, Madam VP Harris, I'm worried about the election. Women's reproductive rights are on the line. Our Supreme Court is on the line. Our basic freedoms are being tested, Madam VP. I know you've been traveling across the country. What are you hearing?
Yeah, girl, I'm out here in these streets. And let me tell you, you're right, Taraji. There is so much at stake in this moment. The majority of us believe in freedom and equality.
This is so
but these
real.
Extremists,
Look at
as
that.
they
That's
say,
a real
they're not
phone.
like us.
No, they not.
There's a full-on attack on our fundamental freedoms. The freedom to vote.
Yep.
The freedom to love who you love. The freedom to be safe from gun violence. The freedom for a woman
Gun
to make
violence.
decisions about her own body, not having her government tell her what to do.
This could be the nominee. You know?
Girl, you know I'm out here in these streets. Oh. Jesus.
You're telling me this is the best I got? This is it? This is what they've got? Okay, that's dumb bleat number 2, Kamala. Let's go to a little bit more BET over here. And I mean, this is, I guess we're in that time of year where you just can't watch. You know, I'm trying to watch the BET Awards the other night.
Yeah.
You know, as I normally do. Mm-hmm. Couldn't get tickets this year. You know, and you just can't watch anything without being preached to politically. It's so annoying.
Time for us to play chess, not checkers. It's about making decisions that will affect us as human beings, our careers, our next generations to come. Did you know that it is now a crime to be homeless? Pay attention. It's not a secret. Look it up. They are attacking our most vulnerable citizens. The Project 2025 plan is not a game. Look it up.
Okay. Now,
what's Project 2025? I got to be honest.
So
I haven't looked into it. I haven't looked it up.
I don't have all the.
What's her name? Is that a Beyonce costume?
No clue. I don't know what's going on.
Looks like gold member.
I'm not going to be able to give you a real great rundown on 2025, but this is basically who is it? Heritage Foundation. Is that who is working on this? Someone in the group can tell me. They've got a thing called Project 2025. I heard someone explain it in an interview that I was listening to Morning Wire or something like that. And essentially, they've set up a roadmap for Trump if he takes office. They pinpointed that one of the problems with Trump's presidency was that he didn't have a plan. And so essentially, people separate from Trump, but some people who also have worked with Trump before have set up this plan called Project 2025 for what they're going to do when Trump takes office. We'll get into a little bit more of this conversation when we come back. You know, we're running up against the hard stop. And coming up soon, we'll be doing an entire episode or an entire 2 or 3 segments for you guys on Liberty at Night about some of the details of Project 2025, because I keep seeing all this crazy stuff about it. Not to mention Trump has clearly tried to distance himself from it. And so we need to go through and get what the actual facts are. But first, you know what we got to do.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. Physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com.
There are basically 2 types of advertising: direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
The latest episode of Free Talk Live continues with Hour 3 up next after the news here at listen.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. US Democratic lawmakers have been meeting on Capitol Hill to discuss the viability of President Joe Biden standing for re-election amid growing calls for him to step down. Biden says he's not going anywhere, despite concerns from his own party about his age and mental agility. Some have classified Tuesday's meetings as make or break for Biden. Democrats in both the House and Senate have huddled to discuss the future of the party and whether they feel Biden should be at the top of the ticket in November's election. Chair of the House Democratic Caucus, Pete Aguilar, agreed there were differing opinions at Tuesday's meeting, but pushed back on suggestions Biden is losing support.
Right now, President Biden is the nominee, and we support the Democratic nominee that will be Donald Trump. That is a fact. That is where we are. And preventing Donald Trump from a disastrous reign.
As Texans pick up the pieces after Hurricane Beryl slammed into the Gulf Coast on Monday, they face another potentially deadlier threat. Millions are without electricity as the heat index soars past 100 degrees Fahrenheit or 40 degrees Celsius. Some officials are warning it could take about 2 weeks to get everyone back online. Ever since Tony Waterman has more from Austin.
State officials say strong winds and heavy rain toppled at least 10 transmission lines. Houston's main utility provider, CenterPoint Energy, says it's mobilized more than 11,000 workers and is aiming to restore power to 1 million customers by the end of Wednesday. But it warned that people in the hardest hit areas could experience extended outages as sweltering heat settles over the state. It could lead to a potentially dangerous situation, people working outside to clear debris from the storm, but having no proper chance to cool off. Tony Waterman, Texas.
NATO leaders are meeting in Washington, D.C. for the 75th anniversary summit, with Ukraine topping the agenda. Ever since Benji Hire has more.
The expanded 32-nation defence pact is vowing to pour more weapons into Ukraine for another year. Yet the big prize, membership, is off the table for now. Instead, senior Biden administration officials say NATO will make other significant announcements, including new steps to bolster Ukraine's air defences. The US president's giving opening remarks today and hosting an event on Thursday with his Ukrainian counterpart Volodymyr Zelensky before holding a press conference to cap the 3-day summit. All eyes on that as Joe Biden fends off calls to quit the presidential race against his predecessor Donald Trump, who's in the past threatened to withdraw from NATO unless European allies pay their fair share. Both foreign and domestic challenges at the fore this week. Benji Hire, Washington.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Today, what happens next in France following the shock defeat over the weekend of the far right in the second round of the country's election. Tactical voting, and indeed tactical candidate offerings by the left-leaning New Popular Front and President Emmanuel Macron's centrists put paid to the right streams of dominating the government. But with a hung parliament looming, what will the future governing arrangements look like in Paris? Correspondent Peter Allen is there.
So what we have now, we have nobody with an absolute majority, and instead a hung parliament, which makes it very hard for Emmanuel Macron to appoint a prime minister or indeed a government. Emmanuel Macron now has to work out who he wants as the next prime minister. The president of France can rule by decree, for example. Emmanuel Macron's been doing that for a couple of years now. He's not had a majority in the National Assembly. That's easily forgotten. He doesn't even have to appoint a prime minister, a politician as prime minister. He can appoint a technocrat or civil servant. I suspect that's what he'll probably end up doing.
It could all have been very different had the centrists and the left not come together to withdraw candidates in the second round to avoid splitting the vote. But whether they will be able to work together as effectively in the new parliament, well, that's a different matter entirely. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
And the main news again. US Democratic lawmakers are meeting on Capitol Hill to discuss the viability of President Joe Biden standing for re-election amid growing calls for him to step down. Texans are picking up the pieces after Hurricane Beryl, but millions still remain without power amid 100-degree temperatures. And NATO leaders are meeting in Washington, D.C. for the 75th anniversary summit, with Ukraine topping the agenda. There's more from us on X at Feature Story. That's Feature Story News. Nick Harper reporting.
Jared Gilchrist was surfing when he was attacked by a shark that took his leg. Thanks for being with us, big guy.
Thanks, this is tight.
What was going through your mind when you first realized that you were there with a shark all alone in open water?
I felt like a total badass. It bit into my leg and started shaking it back and forth, and at that point I just felt, yes, this is sweet.
I can't imagine what it would have been like to see the teeth sinking into your leg like that.
It was sick. At one point I just saw my leg just floating there in the water. It was awesome.
Okay, we're joined now via satellite by Dr. Brian Caddy. What condition was Jared's leg in when you first saw him?
It was in pretty rough shape. The shark had scissored through the muscle, and it was all just like hanging off the bone. It was nuts.
Yeah, I kept touching it. It was slimy as hell.
Yeah, totally. It was insane.
Well, doctor, how do you deal with something like this?
Well, you're never fully prepared for an injury this freaking cool. We just tried to stop the blood loss, and we took a bunch of photos because it's hysterical to freak out the nurses with gnarly shit like this.
This is the Onion News Network.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
I was going to suggest that we need to do a whole episode going through it because I hear people mention Project 2025 all the time. It's a lot of conspiracies about it. There are some things I've seen in it that I definitely don't like for sure. But then I've heard a lot of other crazy stuff about it too. But Project 2025 is like the big boogeyman right now. Even though it's not even officially a Trump campaign anything. It's just a thing that a nonprofit made that they're going to try to get Trump to adopt some of it if he were to win election. It's about as close as I can get it right now. So anyhow, there's that with this whole,
it says here that their goal is to assemble an army of aligned, vetted, trained, and prepared conservatives to go to work on day one to deconstruct the administrative state.
Yeah.
Ooh.
That's scary.
Scary.
It's real scary stuff.
This book is the product of more than 400 scholars and policy experts from across the conservative movement and around the country. Contributors include former elected officials, world-renowned economists, and veterans from 4 presidential administrations. This is an agenda prepared by and for conservatives who will be ready on day one of the next administration to save our country.
Yeah, to get into the details, you'll have to. It's a 950 page document or book or whatever it is they want to call it. So to get into the details, gonna have to do a lot of reading, and we'll need to find some rundowns on it probably. That wasn't even so. The other thing that she said, what I hate about people these days is that you can just say a lie and make a point out of it and somehow get the moral. I don't understand how you can get the moral high ground when you're lying and you're like factually inaccurate about the thing.
Because facts don't matter. Feelings do.
I guess so. Yeah. She says it's now a crime to be homeless.
Did you know that it is now a crime to be homeless?
Okay, so that comes from a recent Supreme Court ruling, by the way. There was a... here, read this, Charlie.
All right, advocates for unhoused people not homeless, unhoused people, warned the U.S. Supreme Court's decision in a major case on camping bans will make the homeless crisis worse, forcing more people into a cycle of jail, debt, and living on the streets, where Kamala Harris is from.
Mm-hmm.
On Friday, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of Grants Pass, Oregon, a small city with a large homeless population. The justices said the town can go ahead with its ban on sleeping in public with bedding, which will prohibit unhoused people from living in public parks, according to lawyers supporting Grants Pass, who spoke with USA Today. People who violate the ban will face fines and possibly jail time. In their 6-3 decision, justices said enforcing a camping ban is not equal to cruel and unusual punishment. The ruling overturned a lower court ruling that kept the ban from being enforced.
So even if you agree or disagree with the Supreme Court ruling, which said a town that had a ban on camping in public places could say that homeless people also couldn't camp in those same public places that other people were not able to camp. Okay? They already banned other people from camping there. And they said, well, these people are camping, and so they also can't camp there. And so this goes up the SCOTUS. Whether or not you agree or disagree with it, what she said isn't true because it's not a crime to be homeless unless you live in Grants Pass, Oregon. Or if you live in some of the other towns. I think Florida has got some new laws about this. They're probably affected by this decision as well. And sure, there's going to be places that take this and run with it. But that's not the same thing as the Supreme Court making it a crime to be homeless. That has to do with your local cities or your state governments or counties or whatever it is that pass these laws. And it's not like a nationwide law now that it's illegal to be homeless. Mm-hmm. But that's what it sounds like when you say it. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. There was a few other comments about this, but we're running long already, so we're going to have to skip past. I'm sorry. There's some other stuff from the group in here pertaining to the homelessness thing, like this comment on the AP and this person that's got a hammer and sickle in their freaking name, saying the Supreme Court just gave green light to price us out of living and then send us to prison for free labor. That's exactly it. You know, those commies, they hate sending people to prison for free labor. Mm-hmm. Super against that.
They just are good with gulags.
So number 4, I don't think you've seen the comment about this yet, but so Thomas Massey's wife unfortunately passed away on Friday, I believe, of last week, or maybe on Thursday of last week. So that's super sad. Put a screenshot of his post in here. He hasn't posted since then. Really, really sad stuff. I haven't seen a cause of death. You know, I guess that doesn't exactly matter. But yeah, very, very sad. They're very young and they're high school sweethearts. You know, he said, yesterday, my high school sweetheart, the love of my life for 35 years, the loving mother of our 4 children, the smartest, kindest woman I ever knew, my beautiful and wise queen forever. Rhonda went to heaven. Thank you for your prayers and our family in this difficult time. So that's sad. Our condolences, of course.
And prayers.
Can't imagine.
Go out to the Massey family.
Can't imagine going through that kind of thing. And so this person on Twitter, Awesome Jew, said this, Charlie.
Dear Thomas, please accept my deepest condolences for your loss. As you navigate through this difficult time, it may be beneficial to engage in some introspection. Over the past 8 months, you have expressed strong negative sentiments towards Israel and its Jewish supporters. I would like to gently suggest that you consider whether this is the legacy you wish to leave behind for your family. Perhaps this is an opportune moment to reassess your perspective and make a positive change in your life. Sincerely, an Awesome Jew. Wow. Used the passing of his wife.
Yeah.
to ridicule him.
To try and make a political
because he's not
point.
Wanting to fund Israel.
Yeah. And to add in lies with it as well, because all Thomas Massey has done is not voted to send your money to another country. And he's been very consistent on that, whether it's Israel or it's Ukraine or it's any other country, is to not vote to send your money to another country. Okay. And to use
this guy's a piece of shit. For sure.
To use the unexpected passing of someone's wife to try and make a point about supporting Israel and time for introspection. Yeah, there's a lot of things I want to say about this guy.
This guy's a psychopath.
Yeah, and I'm just going to tell you, awesome Jew, I'm going to do the right thing here, and I'm not going to apply your morals to everyone who's like you. Okay? Because that would be the wrong thing to do. But yeah, you shouldn't talk anymore. So anyhow, here we go. Number 5, this is fun. Let's make fun of girls for a second. Lighten up the mood a little bit. You want to make fun of girls? Social media trends, stuff like that? This one came from the group. Question for our listeners. Do you suffer from eyebrow blindness? Here's what it is and how you can beat it.
I think about this every day.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many things that people are going through, especially people who spend too much time on TikTok. Yeah, it's bad. It's real bad. I don't know if we need to sign some kind of document. I don't know. Call it Project 2026. Letting women know that doing these things to your face is stupid and a pointless waste of money and no one likes it. And I've heard people say like, oh, well, no one can tell. Yes, they can. Your face is shiny. Mm-hmm. Your lips are way too big. We can all tell.
We can tell.
Stop. No one likes it. Men don't want this. I promise you.
Yeah.
They don't want it.
We don't care about the face crap.
No, not at all. If you're browsing the latest...
Browsing.
I didn't even catch that. If you're browsing...
It's even in italics for you, man.
Yeah, the latest beauty trend, it's possible you've fallen victim to eyebrow blindness. You know, a lot of people get victimized around the world. Okay, and we've got a new class of victims. The term, coined by content creators on TikTok, refers to the act of shaping your brows in accordance to what's in fashion, rather than what works best for your face. Cassandra... What?
Is that her?
I don't know. Cassandra Bankson, a medical esthetician and YouTube skincare personality, told USA Today that eyebrow blindness is, quote, not necessarily good for long-term health or beauty. Like all the others.
I can tell you everything that girl's doing is not good.
It's not good. I mean, there's so many bad things happening right here.
Awful.
Unless this is a trans girl, in which case they've done a pretty good job. TikTok users have started to share old selfies and pictures reflecting on their own eyebrow blindness and how totally unaware they were to how bad their brows looked after following trends and overly plucking and arching. One such social media user, Maddie, shared a jump scare of eyebrow blindness in a video that garnered, this is like time blindness and stuff like that, you know. It's bad. It's affecting many of our younger generation. 5.7 million views on that. We should do that. On TikTok. Bankson said beauty lovers who are worried about whether they suffer from eyebrow blindness should ponder the following questions. Ask yourself, am I just doing what I see is popular on social media? Am I actually choosing beauty looks that make me feel good, or just looking at what the Kardashians are doing to their eyebrows?
I think those are good questions to ask.
Yeah, they're great questions.
I think women kind of struggle with comparing themselves to other people. Oh. They compare themselves with other people on the internet, Instagram, whatever, the Kardashians, and then they just have to go out and get these things or do these things, or they're not enough. And I get that, but man.
But what you hear, I just want to point out that this is not true anymore. What you have heard for a while, I've heard it before, is that, well, women only do those things because of men, because that's what men want.
No, actually, they say they do it for themselves.
Yeah.
Which is a lie. That's a straight up lie.
Well, they try to stand out and bring attention to themselves, and they must think it looks good. I don't know.
You can tell the difference, okay? Look, women say they do it for themselves. However, what they wear at home are sweatpants, baggy t-shirts, no heels.
No.
Well, when they go out to the club, they wear a couple pieces of floss and heels. Now, you tell me you're doing that for yourself. If you were doing it for yourself, you just wear floss and heels at home. That's for yourself. You're not going to be seen by anybody. They're liars.
One thing, this really has nothing to do with it. This esthetician suggests weighing the pros and cons before making any physical changes, especially if it's a permanent change or can be altering enough to lead to a permanent change. Says, quote, you're always going to have a different opinion as you go through your trajectory in life. You don't want to necessarily commit yourself to a trend that might change.
Like cutting your tits off.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. All right, definitely number 6. This should be a quick one as well. Came from the group also. Gary Tan Well, we can have a little economic incentive conversation here. Nonprofits are bad. We need to bring back high integrity state capacity, highly paid, chosen for merit, that's racist, and held to high standards of accountability. The state must end its practice of farming out state capacity to feckless nonprofits that grift and are not held to any standard. And so, therefore, you should give that back to the state, who takes that money under threat of imprisonment or death
and uses it much more wisely.
Does whatever they want with it
than a nonprofit.
You can't choose to not give them that money. They have no incentive to do a good job whatsoever. And that would be way better than a nonprofit. Now, I have a theory on nonprofits. I think everything should be for profit. You want a good nonprofit? You know, the idea of what a nonprofit should do? It should be for profit. You wouldn't be able to do it because people wouldn't want to donate to something where someone's making profit, but they will donate to someone where the CEO gets paid $500,000 a year. That's fine.
Or a couple million,
but
like Goodwill.
But unfortunately, the idea of it being for profit, because the word profit is a bad thing naturally in people's mind, they wouldn't want to donate to something that was a for-profit entity that would probably do a way better job of helping whatever the problem was that people were having.
I will say there's some good nonprofits out there.
Sure, they're good, but they'd be better if they're for profit.
They're run like for-profit companies, the way they budget and do their expenditures and things like that. That's what makes them good. I would say the Salvation Army is one of them. Has very good financials that do a really good job at disseminating donations to people in need.
Well, you know why? Because what happens if they just only do a bad job? People stop giving them money.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
Yeah, people stop donating.
What happens if the government does a bad job?
They still take it.
They get more money. Afterwards.
Because the problem is their budget wasn't big enough.
Yeah, that's the problem. That's the actual problem there. Okay, let's move on to number 7. We're going to get to some good stuff here soon that we're going to spend way too much time on. So we'll move on. Alexander S. Vindman said, "What did Trump do during his 4 years to end the Russia-Ukraine war? Nothing. Trump is full of S." Okay. Now, my natural reaction would be, well, there wasn't a Russia-Ukraine war during Trump's presidency. But according to fact checkers, the Russia-Ukraine war started in 2014. According to this guy, who says, "Are you really this stupid? The war started in 2014. I guess that's when it started. But then apparently there was a ceasefire, I guess, between 2014 and 2022.
Well, is when Russia took Crimea, was that in 2014?
2014, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So I guess that's when it started, even
That was
though there
under
wasn't.
Obama's watch?
Yeah. So so first off, on its face, it's kind of dumb that you would come out and try to throw shade at Trump for not doing anything about it, but not Obama, who was the actual president,
and then there
Biden,
was
who was vice president too.
And then there was no movement while Trump was president. There was no
one took any more ground.
Yeah, there were no war efforts. No war efforts. No paragliders going over the border. Nothing.
But it's Trump's fault because he didn't invade Crimea to try to give it back to Ukraine during this time. That was on Trump because it was under Obama when this happened, and we've already pointed out all the hypocrisy with that. I don't remember anyone freaking out and saying that we should send them a couple $100 billion when Russia went in there and took Crimea. I didn't see hardly a disturbingly small amount of Ukraine flags in people's bios on social media. Hardly any when this happened. I think it's actually because there was a Democrat that was the president at this time.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a video about this, and I think we kind of covered everything in it. I guess technically the war did start in 2014. I was under the impression that these were separate things. But to try and hold Trump accountable for this makes absolutely zero sense whatsoever. And he did send them weapons when actually Obama didn't send them weapons, which to us would be a bad thing. But I don't know what else he wanted them to do. Invade Russia, something like that. Great job, Vindman. All right, good. Reparations. Here we go. Go ahead, Charlie.
Number 8. California budgets up to $12 million for reparations bills, a milestone in atoning for racist legacy. You know, because California was a state.
Yeah.
Back when slavery.
Big slave state. Big slave state.
Back when there was slavery. Oh, God. California plans to spend up to $12 million on reparations legislation under a budget signed by Gavin Newsom, marking a milestone in the state's efforts to atone for a legacy of racism and discrimination against black Californians. Now, they probably did some segregation stuff during
there was also
the Civil Rights Act.
Yeah, there was a property that was taken through eminent domain as well, which I think we did a story about them giving back some of that property maybe last year or the year before, something like that, to the specific family like that it was taken away from. But anyway.
Yeah. The reparations funding in the almost $300 billion budget Newsom signed over the weekend does not specify what programs the money would go toward. Lawmakers are not considering widespread direct payments to black Californians this year.
What's kind of funny is what they're going to do are they're going to try to subsidize different things and offer different incentives and stuff. You know, basically the stuff that we already have and we have had for like 50 years already. And they're going to call that reparations. So it kind of sounds like we've had reparations.
But hang on. Listen, the state legislature is weighing proposals to issue a formal apology for California's role in perpetuating discrimination against black residents to create an agency to administer reparations programs. That's what we need. Another agency.
You need the agency.
A reparations agency. And to identify families whose property was unjustly seized through eminent domain. Now, that I don't mind.
That's fine. Give it back to if the family's still there, give it back to them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kamala Moore, who chaired a first-in-the-nation state reparations task force, was disappointed that lawmakers did not introduce legislation this year to provide free tuition at public colleges for descendants of enslaved black people, which the group recommended in its final report. But Moore said it was still good news to see $12 million for reparations included in the budget as a starting point. Quote, it means that they're taking accountability and responsibility, and they're acknowledging the harms and the atrocities to this particular population, she said. That's a huge step that should not be overlooked.
A question before we get to the last part here. Who is taking accountability and responsibility for what? Would be my question. Is it someone who owned slaves is taking responsibility for something that they did? Or are they taking accountability, I guess, as the state government? And of course, they're going to use the people's money to try to right the wrongs of the things that the state government did afterwards? I don't know. It's a decent question. But you mentioned the agency, Charlie, because of course you can't have reparations without preparations. And so they've got this budget, but of course you got to employ some people to figure out how you're going to spend the $12 million. And how are they going to spend the $12 million?
Well, it's going to cost the state between $3 to $5 million annually to run the reparations agency. You can double that. So $6 to $10 million. Let's call it 10 to be safe. So basically 90% of the budget is going to be spent on this agency. Yeah. According to an estimate reported by the Assembly Committee on Appropriations, the legislature hasn't released an estimated cost to implement the eminent domain bill, but the Senate Appropriations Committee said it could cost the state hundreds of thousands of dollars to investigate claims by families who say their land was taken because of racially discriminatory motives.
So they're going to spend, like you said, let's even just say the top number, $5 million. They say estimate between $3 to $5 million. Okay, let's say it's the top number. It's probably going to be 6, 7, or 8, something like
10.
that. And so they're going to...
Or 12. They're going to spend the whole...
They're going to portion $12 million, and they're going to spend $6 million of it trying to figure out how to spend $6 million of it.
Yep.
Every year, they're going to be paying that much money.
And because these are going to be new jobs they can't take away once they get them.
No, you can't be racist to take those away.
Yes.
You can't do that.
Yeah.
The problem hasn't been solved yet. And this is the actual goal of these things, by the way.
Yeah.
As they said, there's no actual plans in the legislature for what they're going to do with it at all. But they're setting this money aside.
They're doing something.
Yes. They're creating
they can pat themselves on the back.
Agency where people are going to get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars a year.
This agency probably needs a task force.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to need their own SWAT team.
They do. They do. Yeah. They need a SWAT team. Of course they do. Much more to come on Liberty at Night with Nate and Charlie on the Free Talk Live Network, including this week's Dumb Bleep of the Week winner. Who will it be? No idea. Let's see.
If you're looking for work, or even if you're not, here's an innocent mistake you really want to avoid. Never return calls before listening to your voicemail. Your wireless phone sends calls you didn't answer into voicemail, and it shows you phone numbers for calls you missed. Important. Don't call back callers you missed until you have first listened to your messages. Otherwise, you frustrate people who bothered to leave messages by asking them to repeat a message they just left as your voicemail greeting instructed them to. If you're a job applicant, this alone could be a deal killer. And even if you're not, there are few things you can convey to someone that are as fundamentally maddening as, "I didn't hear you." With money and attention so scarce now, effective communication skills have never been more important. For more tips for job seekers and everyone else, hit survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. US Democratic lawmakers have been meeting on Capitol Hill to discuss the viability of President Joe Biden standing for re-election amid growing calls for him to step down. Biden says he's not going anywhere, despite concerns from his own party about his age and mental agility. Some have classified Tuesday's meetings as make or break for Biden. Democrats in both the House and Senate have huddled to discuss the future of the party and whether they feel Biden should be at the top of the ticket in November's election. Chair of the House Democratic Caucus, Pete Aguilar, agreed there were differing opinions at Tuesday's meeting, but pushed back on suggestions Biden is losing support.
Right now, President Biden is the nominee, and we support the Democratic nominee that will be Donald Trump. That is a fact. That is where we are. And preventing Donald Trump from a disastrous reign.
As Texans pick up the pieces after Hurricane Beryl slammed into the Gulf Coast on Monday, they face another potentially deadlier threat. Millions are without electricity as the heat index soars past 100 degrees Fahrenheit or 40 degrees Celsius. Some officials are warning it could take about 2 weeks to get everyone back online. FSN's Tony Waterman has more from Austin.
State officials say strong winds and heavy rain toppled at least 10 transmission lines. Houston's main utility provider, CenterPoint Energy, says it's mobilized more than 11,000 workers and is aiming to restore power to 1 million customers by the end of Wednesday. But it warned that people in the hardest hit areas could experience extended outages as sweltering heat settles over the state. It could lead to a potentially dangerous situation, people working outside to clear debris from the storm, but having no proper chance to cool off. Tony Waterman, Texas.
NATO leaders are meeting in Washington, D.C. for the 75th anniversary summit, with Ukraine topping the agenda. FSN's Benji Hire has more.
The expanded 32-nation defence pact is vowing to pour more weapons into Ukraine for another year. Yet the big prize, membership, is off the table for now. Instead, senior Biden administration officials say NATO will make other significant announcements, including new steps to bolster Ukraine's air defences. The US president's giving opening remarks today and hosting an event on Thursday with his Ukrainian counterpart Volodymyr Zelensky before holding a press conference to cap the 3-day summit. All eyes on that as Joe Biden fends off calls to quit the presidential race against his predecessor Donald Trump, who's in the past threatened to withdraw from NATO unless European allies pay their fair share. Both foreign and domestic challenges at the fore this week. Benji Hire, Washington.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
Number 9, Mr. Beast. Now, it's not Mr. Beast that's a dome here, okay? Now, this is a good thing. I happen to think this is a good thing. I don't know. When I see stuff like this, I think it's a good thing. But he went out there and gave away this piece of crap.
Yeah.
Goes out there, builds 100 homes
with his own money
for the unhoused, and that probably in that town in Oregon,
This looks to be a pretty foreign tropical
it's
country.
Probably somewhere in Africa would be a guess of mine. Okay, so he builds 100 houses. Let's watch 1 minute of the video, and you tell me that you don't get what an evil, terrible person this guy is type feeling. Tell me you're not disgusted by this man.
You're building and giving away 100 houses, and each home is going to change a family's life. Like this family, who didn't have a house to call their own, and they have no idea we just built them one. Take off your blindfolds and turn around. Behind you is your brand new home.
I always want them to have a bunk bed. I'm a dream come true.
And this is just the first of 100 houses we're giving away.
First?
I'm glad they're happy. Let's go give away another house. With every single home we're building in this video, we're improving quality of life for families who don't have a safe space to call home. And we spent millions of dollars just on this video building these houses. Because here in Jamaica, there are currently over 500,000 people living in unsafe, life-threatening conditions, like this next family, whose house is so unsafe and unstable that it could literally collapse on them at any given moment. So you built this place?
Yeah.
By yourself?
Yeah, I brought boards and all materials they see.
But we're on top.
Doesn't look like it's up to code.
You carried all this material up this mountain.
Yep. On my head.
Wow. We knew we wanted to build this family a house. So we sent them on a mini vacation so that we had enough time to work with our partners to build them a brand new home. You're about to witness a family that lives in this house go to living in this house. And I cannot wait to see the look on their faces.
Oh my.
What you're looking at is your brand new home. The trip we sent you guys on was just a decoy, so we could have time to build this brand new house for you. You want to see the inside? Come check it out.
Whoa.
We noticed that you guys might need some new furniture, so we completely...
Okay, before we all start crying, I think we should talk about what's going on here. So the reason this is in Dumb Bleep of the Week is because of this.
Yep. Healer, that vegan healer tweeted, Mr. Beast is once again displaying his white savior complex while looking like a literal colonizer. Yep. I wouldn't have thought anything else. That when I first watched the video.
That's what I was thinking.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not crying, you're crying.
Never mind the emotional reactions from the people receiving these homes. Just another white colonizer.
Well, they're crying because they realize they just got colonized.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What you can't see in the new homes are the chains.
Yeah.
On
They're behind the
walls.
cameras.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Where the families actually spend 23 hours a day and they're only let inside the rest of the house for an hour.
Fact check true.
Mr. Beast installed chains in the walls where he has them video editing all of his videos for him for free. Slave labor. And then they get to use the home for an hour.
Costco said he's actually charging each family thousands of dollars to live there. That's the thing. You leave on a vacation, he tears down your home and builds you a new one and says, what? You want a house or not? Well,
$1,000 a month.
$1,000 a month for this house right here. Yeah, that's exactly what's happening. By the way, our previous story was a story about how white people owe black people reparations.
Not Jamaican black people.
Not Jamaican black people, I guess. Yeah. That's fine. That's fine. But there's a sort of a contradiction there where a lot of people would support reparations, but then also say that this guy helping people who happen to be black, because that's what the people look like who live in these areas, helping them have houses, is a white savior complex and being a colonizer, but also he should pay a bunch of taxes towards reparations so he can be forced to give people money afterwards. They just don't like the idea of something being voluntary because it takes away their ability to feel like they did something.
Yep.
And that's what they're all really chasing is this idea that they punched the ballot, they helped put a gun in someone else's face and bring the money to that guy because they thought they deserved it more and they feel good about that. And
you're taking away their good feelings.
It's theft.
Yes.
Helping people is theft. That's what it is. Okay.
Number 10.
Number 10, Libertarian Party of Colorado. I'll give a disclaimer here. I don't really know a lot of people from the Libertarian Party of Colorado, but I assume...
There's a few in the live group, I believe.
I assume... Well, I don't know. I don't know if they're like...
Oh, they're from Colorado. Yeah. We don't know if they're members of the state party.
I assume that these are probably good people.
On both sides?
On both sides of this debate right here. Fine people even. And that they're doing what they think is best to further the future of the Libertarian Party and maybe even libertarianism itself. Okay? All right, now let's make fun of how stupid this is. The Libertarian Party of Colorado Board of Directors passed a resolution voting in favor of a groundbreaking partnership with the independent presidential campaign of Robert Kennedy Jr. You guys might remember they were also the ones that announced that they would not be putting Chase Oliver, the Libertarian nominee for president, on the ballot.
And Tremont, yeah.
This collaboration aims to disrupt the entrenched two-party system and provide Colorado voters with a viable alternative in the upcoming 2024 presidential election. The first presidential debate of 2024 election highlighted major flaws and issues that all voters, especially unaffiliated and disenfranchised voters, have with the status quo candidates. Now more than ever is the time to take bold action to disrupt the authoritarian duopoly machine. As part of this partnership, the Libertarian Party of Colorado will place Kennedy's Shanahan ticket on the Colorado state ballot for president and vice president. This move reflects our commitment to offering voters a choice that transcends the traditional partisan divide and promotes individual liberty, personal responsibility, and limited government and justice for all. They didn't say that. RFK shares many of the Libertarian Party's core principles. Did he sign the non-aggression principle?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Including a commitment to civil liberties, free markets, and a non-interventionist foreign policy. His campaign's focus on ending corporate welfare, reducing government spending, and protecting the environment aligns with our values and resonates with Colorado voters.
Reducing government spending.
Yeah. That's something that he has talked about. Yeah. So essentially, it
says he's a signatory of the LPCO's Presidential Liberty Pledge, affirming his alignment with many of the positions libertarians strongly hold, and its contents will be released at a later date.
Okay. So they're not going to put the actual Libertarian nominee on their ballot. Okay. That's someone that Charlie and I have deep enough philosophical problems with that neither one of us plan on voting for him. All right.
Yeah.
Is RFK Jr. a libertarian?
No.
But he shares some of the Libertarian Party's core values.
Except for the biggest one, which is economics.
Yeah, economics.
I mean, the dude wants to do a government-backed 3% housing loan. What do you think that's going to do to the housing market?
Is that a free market? It says right here that he is committed to civil liberties and free markets. But he wants to have a 3%. Well, actually what we should do is we're going to bring up RFK's policy page. So this first thing on the policy says, we the people, not we the corporations. And RFK is one of these people that hates corporations more than he hates the government. And you can pinpoint, you can say corporations actually end up running a lot of stuff in the government. We have all these agencies out here, and the corporations are clearly buying people off, and they get to help write the regulations that end up helping them and hurting their competitors. And we all understand that. But he's the kind of guy who doesn't understand the basic principle, say, what Lord Acton said, that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. He doesn't understand that the problem is the power that the government has. He thinks the problem is that the corporations are buying off the power, working with the agencies and stuff like that, and you can fix that problem. That's not a libertarian
Just got to have good people running the agencies.
Good people, fine people even.
Yeah.
So he says, as president, one of RFK's top priorities will be to dissolve the corrupt merger of state and corporate power. That means freeing government agencies. Finally, free at last. Free at last. These government agencies will be free at last from the control of big corporations.
Yeah.
That's a Libertarian Party platform, freeing up the government agencies.
Okay. This is how he's going to do it, though. He's going to install honest, competent leadership throughout the federal bureaucracy.
Better people.
Agency by agency.
Better people.
That's how, you just got to have, the problem is we don't have honest people.
Yeah.
Running these agencies.
It's not that the entire structure is immoral and against all of the libertarian principles that we all know and love. It's that you don't have benevolent dictators in those agencies, and RFK gets that idea, just like all libertarians do.
He's going to shut the revolving door by executive order with a 5-year ban on administration officials lobbying their former government agency. That'll work.
It's definitely going to work.
Yeah. 5 years is enough time.
Yeah. That guy's not going to talk to his friend and have him go lobby. That's not
That
going to
would
happen.
never happen.
No.
Oh.
Okay, so that's is there anything else that's good in this one?
Well, he's going to root out corruption and replace corporate-friendly agency leaders with reformers and whistleblowers dedicated to the national interest. And he knows that because he's going to ask them. Hey, are you a reformer and whistleblower dedicated to the national interest? And they're going to say yay.
Yeah.
And anyone who says nay, he's not going to put in that position of leadership.
You know what?
That's going to solve all the problems.
The most libertarian thing, though, about this, that he's going to ask them, because you said he's going to ask them. Okay, so he's going to do that, and he's going to say, hey, you're not one of those guys who likes it.
Or gals.
Or gals, whichever one, who likes it when people decide to risk a bunch of money and create products that other people need and that they love and that they want to pay you voluntarily for, and that you get a lot of money for that, you know, like a corporation. You're not one of those guys who's corporate friendly, are you? Because we don't want that. Because we're libertarians around here.
Mm-hmm.
All right? We want to make sure the government is free from people who like markets. It's super libertarian stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. There's a little bit more.
The problem is it's so libertarian it's hard for us to talk about.
I don't, because we're not that libertarian, so we don't understand it.
Do the home ownership and the American dream.
That's a good one, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. We've got that.
This is the most. This is probably the most libertarian position that he's got. So
no other libertarians have read the libertarian books that this guy's had read, like Capital.
So he's going to implement, or have Congress implement somehow, tax-free 3% government-backed mortgage bonds to bring the mortgage interest rate back to 2019 levels and even lower. It's like having a rich uncle, Uncle Sam, who's willing to co-sign your mortgage, baby, because the financing will come from investors. The cost to taxpayers, you got to be manageable. This measure alone will reduce monthly costs for the average home purchase by $1,000.
This is the kind of stuff that would make Ron Paul blush right here. You know,
he's going to bring land and buildings back online. Many cities have thousands of vacant lots and buildings that have been seized for tax arrears or other reasons.
And they get seized because of tax purposes.
The Kennedy administration will incentivize local governments to bring city-owned land and buildings back onto the market.
Well, there we go. That totally outweighs the tax-free 3% government-backed mortgages.
Yeah.
You know, which are going to be
This
great.
could have no implications on the housing market whatsoever.
No, and I mean, they're tax-free. So that's libertarian. You know, when you circumvent the interest rates that are in the market and do that kind of thing. So that's a good thing, of course. Let's see. People who work hard.
Super libertarian.
How can you be this is something all libertarians are in favor of. People who work hard should be able to afford a good life. Of course they should. And you know how we're going to do it? We're going to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. We're going to prosecute corporations that don't like unions, that force them to do things that they don't voluntarily want to do.
Prosecute union-busting corporations so that labor can organize and negotiate fair wages. Perfect.
We're going to expand. Now, get this. See, libertarians, we think differently. They're going to give free childcare. Not some of that taxpayer-funded childcare that those Democrats want to do, or those lefties want to do. RFK, the libertarian way, is going to do free childcare to millions of families. Okay? It's free. How is that a problem? Right? Let's see. Of course, they got the 3% home mortgages in here. Let's see. We're going to cut energy prices by restricting natural gas exports. It's very free, proponent of the markets.
Yeah.
Of course.
We're going to make student debt dischargeable in bankruptcy and cut interest rates on student loans to zero.
First part, okay, student debt dischargeable in bankruptcy. Maybe it should be like all the other loans. It should also be held by people who also took some kind of collateral for that to be able to get that loan. Maybe you can do bankruptcy like other loans. That's fine. But the interest rates, those are the real problem. And as libertarians know, you should not be charged for taking someone else's money and keeping it for 30 years.
Yeah.
Not at all.
And then we're also going to cut drug costs by half and bring them in line with other nations, just, I guess, by executive order.
Well, I mean, now that Biden's immune, he should hit the cut in half button that they've got there in the White House. Why didn't he just hit that button? You know?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my God. The problem is, if you got problems with Chase Oliver, which clearly LPCO does, they're not putting them on the ballot, okay? You might be thinking, well, that doesn't align with Libertarian Party values or libertarianism's values. And so we're going to take a very, very principled stance. And even though this guy's good on like 99% of the issues, because of this one thing where you're not going to put him on the ballot, okay? But you completely destroy that argument when you decide to put someone who is way less libertarian.
Yes.
Insanely less libertarian.
Yes.
Than Chase Oliver is on the ballot, which means some people could say, well, your decision to not put Chase Oliver on the ballot kind of sounds like it's not because he wasn't a libertarian. I don't know what. I'm not saying that's the reasoning, of course, because people say that kind of stuff in like gotcha moments and all that. But what is the reasoning? It can't be that he wasn't a libertarian.
Anybody from LPCO come on the show? Email me, Nate at goodmorningliberty.us. Let's talk about this, because this is insane.
It's dumb.
It's dumb.
Yeah, we should talk about it today on today's show.
Yeah. Well, also, I want to see what their reasoning behind. How can you defend something like this?
The reasoning is to get votes.
Yeah, but this is god awful.
Yeah.
And sure, Kennedy, he's good on COVID, maybe in lockdowns, although he might have done the same thing. He's good on a few things, being anti-war, sure. Although when he gets in there, he'd probably drop bombs just like everybody else does.
Unless it pertains to Israel. He's totally fine with giving them everything.
Right.
Super libertarianism there.
Everything else is awful. Literally. There's no economic principles whatsoever. He's just fine with using government money and power to
control the
market and corporations. It
makes no sense whatsoever. The only thing,
this is not libertarian.
The only excuse.
And is Shanahan any better? No,
I have no idea what her ideas are at all. Don't care. The only excuse you can make is that they're going to get more votes under the Libertarian Party name. That could equal more money or easier ballot access later on down the road, something like that. Well, if that's the case, why don't we just put Bernie Sanders on the ballot or something like that? Neither one of those guys are libertarians. Just put someone on there. Why don't you get someone else who would get still more votes than that? You know, if that's going to be the principle. There is no principle involved in this. That's the problem. All right. We'll move on. By the way, Kennedy's big issue with the Chevron decision, of course, has a problem with that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, super libertarian to not want to gut the power of these federal agencies. So we don't have time to go into that because we got like 5 minutes left. So we'll talk about Edward Snowden.
This is number 11.
Edward motherfreaking Snowden. This is not what someone said about Snowden. This is not someone making some kind of dumb comment in an article. This is not Trump saying that Snowden should be tried for treason. You know?
This is him.
This is Edward Snowden as the dumb bleep number 11. Go ahead.
Right. He tweets out with a picture of Bernie.
I think that could be.
That says you could have had a bad.
Yeah.
Edward says the DNC is the only reason you're not currently enjoying a second term Sanders and a sane Supreme Court. Now, technically not wrong. The DNC did oust Sanders. Now, we don't know if Sanders would have actually beaten Trump in 2016. It's possible he would have. But also the fact that he's supporting a basic communist who would literally continue all of the programs that Snowden had a problem with. And then some, probably. And somehow, the guy who's against tyrannical government is throwing out his support in someone who would continue and expand tyranny in government.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, doesn't it?
No, it doesn't.
Oh, okay. Doesn't make it. It's dumb. That's why it's on this. Yeah. No, so people think that
the live group's like, leave him in Russia, I guess.
Yeah, he's been in Russia too long.
Yeah,
that's the problem. The people think that Sanders would be way better on a bunch of issues. Maybe he's better on war. Maybe he was against some of the spying or whatever. Maybe he's better on civil liberties or something like that.
He wants to audit the Fed. I mean, that's something.
Could be better on things like that. Yeah, he wants to audit the Fed so he can see how much more money they can steal from people to spend on stupid programs. Yeah, under Sanders, you know what they'll be spying? They'll put a freaking microphone in your room to make sure you're not using unsanctioned deodorant or something like that.
Or
make sure you not got the wrong toothpaste in your bathroom.
Yeah.
So
black market toothpaste.
And then what we have to remember to say is you have to move past Sanders. So the answer is, under Sanders, getting all the things that Sanders wants, how much bigger does the government get? Like twice as big.
Or more.
As what it is even right now. You get that much bigger of a government. You get that much money coming into the government. Sanders is old. I don't think he's going to be the president for a long time. Maximum 8 years. Okay, he could be ending his term like right now if he would have won in whatever year it was, 2016, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and who comes after him? Can you guarantee me that it is a benevolent dictator just like Sanders? Snowden should know better than this. We just yelled about him having the run from the government, living in Russia yesterday.
Did he not learn anything about voting for Obama? He talks about it in his book, how he thought that, voting for Obama would usher in this new era of like government accountability, and he got burned on that. And it's like, you don't think you're going to get burned again?
I guess not. All right, let's get the votes in. I know Charlie's got to go.
Y'all get your votes in.
Let's go into the voting channel and get all those votes in. You
can vote for my ex too.
The possibilities were...
Love you, bye.
The possibilities were... Number 1, Joe Biden, all the stuff that we talked about with that. Number 2, Kamala Harris. She's the new deal, the real deal. She's from them streets. Okay. Number 3, we got homelessness as a crime, apparently. Number 4, we got that awesome Jew in his comment to Thomas Massey. Number 5, eyebrows. Number 6, nonprofits. Number 7, the Ukraine war. Number 8, reparations in California. Number 9, Mr. Beast, white savior complex, or whatever it is they call it. Number 10, LP Colorado. Number 11, Edward Snowden. And so get your votes in. By the way, Chuck's ex cannot actually win. So if you want to express your support also for one of the other options, that would be great as well. While you're getting those votes in, I will tell you to go to joingmail.com so you can hang out with the Fed Haters Club and be getting your votes in right now like they are. Okay? They get to control whoever the winner is, and it goes down the dumb bleep of the year at the end of that. And even if you don't have time to come hang out every day at whatever random time it is we choose, well, you could still be chipping in, $7 a month. And then, of course, all the fees and stuff come out of it after that. But, at the end of the day, it's like $5 a month for us. You could be chipping in towards one of your favorite Liberty programs, So do that, or go to GodHatesFeds.com and buy a shirt. They're $25 shirts. I get it. We get like $8 off of that. Okay. So that's another way that you can help out. And I think you could use the promo code 25Pride to get 25% off God Hates Feds merch through the end of tomorrow. Okay, I know we're past Pride Month now, but we kept that going through July 4th, I believe. Let's see where the votes are going. It is, there we go, nice. Awesome Jew, and the response to the passing of Thomas Massey's wife. Just absolutely freaking disgusting, and I'm really glad I won this week. If you want to put in a submission for next week, go to joingml.com and join the Fed Haters Club, or find us on X, Good AM Liberty, Good Morning Liberty on X, and tweet us some submissions. Maybe you can win next week.
Free Talk Live, the show where anyone can call about whatever they want. And we do mean anyone.
Homeland Security teaching the Boy Scouts of America to do black ops missions and destroy
Hold on a second.
veterans returning.
Did you just say that they are training the Boy Scouts to do black op missions?
Of course they are. There's funding from the Department of Homeland Security. There's grants and
Wait, what kind of black ops are we talking about here? Just like spying on the neighbors, seeing if they're putting their recycling in the wrong bin, or what?
It goes deeper than that. To teach the 12 and 13, 14-year-olds how to do paintball stuff, and the target is supposedly